Chapter 3560. Shock. He couldn't take down this child in a short period of time, and the two were evenly matched. This made Heng Wu feel incredulous. Since when did an early-stage third blight cultivator have such terrifying strength? This didn't make sense. Xian Ya, who was originally calm, became serious when she saw the battle between Zhuowen and Heng Wu. She even revealed a look of shock. She could also see that Zhuowen's cultivation was only at the early stage of the third heaven's blight, but he could match Heng Wu, who was at the early stage of the fourth heaven's blight. Just where did this guy come from? How could he be so abnormal? Not only Xian Ya, even Hong Wan and Sai Yangbo, who were originally unconvinced, were completely dumbfounded. This battle had completely shattered their worldview. A third blight cultivator was actually able to fight a fourth blight cultivator. After all, the difference between the two was too great. How did Zhuowen do it? Compared to the shock of Heng Wu and the others, Zhuowen was extremely excited. He had only used 80% of his strength in his battle with Heng Wu, but this 80% was able to fight evenly with an early-stage fourth blight cultivator. If he used his full strength, he could easily defeat Heng Wu. He finally realized how terrifying his potential was. He was only at the early stage of the third blight, and he already had such terrifying battle strength. And this was only the grand mist chant that he had created himself. If he cultivated the real primordial chaos chant in the future, his battle power would be even more terrifying. Zhuowen didn't plan on immediately defeating Heng Wu. He had just broken through and needed to properly comprehend the benefits his new realm brought him. Therefore, he planned on using this battle with Heng Wu to completely consolidate his new realm. If possible, he could even comprehend his new realm. Damn it! Die for me! Heng Wu saw that his attacks weren't successful and became angry. He was a fourth blight cultivator, but he couldn't even take down a third blight cultivator. This was a great humiliation to him, so he began to use his final ace. Heng Wu took out a golden rock claw. The surface of this rock claw was surging with an extremely mysterious and terrifying aura. This is the golden claw of a real golden-winged rock. I didn't think that Heng Wu would even use this. This Zhuowen is dead for sure. When Xian Ya saw Heng Wu's golden claw, her expression turned solemn. She was very clear about the power of the golden-winged rock's golden claws. It was said that back then, Heng Wu relied on the golden claw of the golden-winged rock to kill an early-stage fourth blight cultivator with peak third blight strength. Now that Heng Wu's cultivation was a level higher, he was able to unleash an even more terrifying power of this golden claw. No matter how strong this Zhuowen was, it was likely hard to withstand the power of this golden claw too. Boom! Heng Wu spat out a mouthful of essence blood and sprinkled it on the surface of the golden claw. Immediately, the golden claw erupted with a terrifying golden light. It was like 1,000 rays of light that spread outwards. It was exceptionally terrifying. Subsequently, the golden claw turned into a ray of golden light that instantly shot out from Heng Wu's hand and charged towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen felt a sense of danger. He knew that Heng Wu's golden claw wasn't ordinary at all. Its power was absolutely terrifying. Zhuowen didn't dare to be careless. He circulated the primordial chant with all his might. His entire body surged with purple light, illuminating the entire space in a mysterious purple color. Then, within the boundless purple light, Zhuowen took a step forward. His right fist was propelled by his body as he violently punched out. He didn't hold back this time. He used 100% of his strength in this punch. Boom! When Zhuowen's fist collided with the golden claw, he immediately discovered that this golden claw was extremely difficult to deal with. It was actually constantly destroying his terrifying fist aura. However, Zhuowen's shattered divine force was clearly a level higher. He was able to resist the golden claw's corrosion. Poochie! Zhuowen's right fist exploded. Zhuowen's golden claw's surface also dimmed. Then, Zhuowen forcefully imprisoned the golden claw and unceremoniously threw it into the great world. What? You took away my golden claw? Heng Wu saw with his own eyes that Zhuowen had taken away the golden claw. He was simply dumbfounded. He originally thought that Zhuowen was dead for sure once he used the golden claw. He didn't expect that it would only injure Zhuowen's fist. Moreover, the golden claw was forcefully taken away by the latter. Your golden claw's power isn't bad. I'll gladly accept it. Zhuowen's tone was calm. He took another step forward and charged towards Heng Wu. As for his shattered right fist, it was rapidly recovering. Before he reached Heng Wu, it had already completely healed. Heng Wu had long since panicked. He was truly shocked by Zhuowen. At this moment, he had also lost the will to fight in his heart. Poochie. Zhuowen's punch caused Heng Wu to spit out blood and retreat. Then, he followed closely behind and began to suppress Heng Wu. At this moment, Zhuowen didn't hold back at all. He used 100% of his strength. Without the golden claw, Heng Wu wasn't Zhuowen's opponent at all. Looking at how Zhuowen was suppressing Heng Wu, who seemed to be in a very difficult situation, everyone from the Golden Silk Sect and Divine Peng Sect were collectively stunned. What was going on? Heng Wu was the old ancestor of the Divine Peng Sect and an early Fourth Blight expert. Now, he was being beaten back like a stray dog. Poochie. Zhuowen punched out one last time, landing on Heng Wu's chest. The powerful godly shattering power exploded out, causing Heng Wu to scream miserably. His body exploded into a bloody mist, and then he fell from the sky in a sorry state, smashing onto the ground. His entire body twitched, and he almost fainted. F***CK. What's the origin of this guy? Even the old ancestor lost. Sai Yangbo was so frightened that he knelt on the ground again. His body trembled. Even his old ancestor lost to this person. At this moment, his face was ashen. Let's go. When Xian Ya saw that Heng Wu was defeated, her pupils shrank into needles. She didn't hesitate to grab the dazed Hong Wan on the ground and immediately fled out of the territory. Do you think you can escape? Zhuowen landed on the ground and ignored the unconscious Heng Wu. He took out an array flag and threw it out. Instantly, the territory of the Golden Silk Sect and Divine Peng Sect was enveloped by a powerful trap array. Xian Ya, who was originally escaping, was immediately blocked by the trap array and retreated. A high-grade half-step heaven-breaking trap array? You're also a half-step heaven-breaking array master? After being blocked, Xian Ya abruptly turned around and looked at Zhuowen in disbelief. Hihi, you have the advantage in numbers while I'm alone. I came alone, so I naturally came prepared. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know how I died, Zhuowen said indifferently. His words were immediately criticized by everyone present. You're so strong. Even if someone came alone, they wouldn't be your match. Didn't you see how badly Heng Wu, the old ancestor of the Divine Peng Sect, was beaten by you? Hong Wan looked at Zhuowen in a daze. She suddenly felt regret. She shouldn't have provoked this person. If she knew that this person was so strong, she wouldn't have come out even if she was beaten to death. Chapter 3561. Intimidating fellow Daoist Zhuo. Everything just now was a misunderstanding. I apologize for my rudeness just now, please don't take it to heart. Xian Ya was a decisive person. She could tell that the trap formation around them was a high-grade half-step heaven breaker trap formation. With her strength, it would be impossible for her to break through it in a short time. Coupled with Zhuowen, who was glaring at her like a tiger watching its prey, she couldn't escape at all. Moreover, she was very clear about her own strength. Although she was stronger than Heng Wu, her strength was limited, only at the early stage of the Fourth Blight. Since Zhuowen could deal with Heng Wu so cleanly, it wouldn't be difficult for him to defeat her as well. Therefore, she put down her pride and took the initiative to apologize. Ari. Fellow Daoist Xian Ya is too polite. This Zhuo didn't come here to cause trouble, it's just that some people were too arrogant and took the initiative to attack. Just now, this Zhuo was only defending himself. Fellow Daoist Xian Ya, although it was a misunderstanding, this misunderstanding caused me to lose a lot. This is really a bit distressing. Zhuowen stopped here and looked at Xian Ya with a smile. Xian Ya's face sank. She knew that Zhuowen was openly asking for benefits. However, there was nothing she could do. After all, they were the ones who attacked first and were in the wrong. Coupled with Zhuowen's strength, she really didn't dare to refute. With that in mind, Xian Yue sighed and took out a stalk of divine herb from her spirit ring. She handed it to Zhuo Wen and said, "Fellow Daoist Zhuo, Xian Yue was too rash earlier and failed to recognize Mount Tai. This is flowing eye crystal ice, a half-step heaven breaker divine herb. Take it as an apology for the misunderstanding just now." When she took out the flowing eye crystal ice, Xian Yue felt extremely pained. This was a half-step heaven breaker divine herb, and she didn't have many of them herself. The value of each one was immeasurable. Zhuowen's eyes lit up and he took the flowing eye crystal ice without hesitation and said indifferently, "Fellow Daoist Xian Yue, this Zhuo won't be polite." Xian Yue's forehead was filled with black lines as she watched Zhuowen eagerly put away the flowing eye crystal ice. She couldn't help cursing in her heart, "You didn't plan on being polite at all." After putting away the flowing eye crystal ice, Zhuowen's eyes fell on Heng Wu, who was not far away. He took a step forward and gave Heng Wu a kick without hesitation. "You!" The originally unconscious Heng Wu was directly kicked awake. He spat out a mouthful of blood, his gaze furiously looking at Zhuowen. "What about you? You're done playing dead over there. Now, it's time to talk about the compensation for my mental trauma," Zhuowen said calmly. Heng Wu's eyes were filled with humiliation and helplessness. Who asked him to be inferior? Now that he had fallen into Zhuowen's hands, he had no choice but to look up to Zhuowen. He knew very well that if he resisted to the end, it was very likely that Zhuowen would act decisively and completely annihilate him. This immortal placeflower is also a half-step heaven-breaching grade divine herb. Take it, it's enough to compensate for your mental trauma. Heng Wu took out a divine flower exuding a multicolored glow and tossed it to Zhuowen with a pained expression. Zhuowen unceremoniously put away the immortal placeflower and said with a smile, "How can a half-step heaven-breaching grade divine herb be enough? No matter what, you need at least 3. My mental trauma isn't that cheap. Don't go too far. That Xian Yue only took out a half-step heaven-breaching grade divine herb and you actually want 3? Why don't you just rob me?" Heng Wu said furiously. "Pa." Unfortunately, as soon as Heng Wu finished speaking, he was met with a solid palm strike that ruthlessly knocked him to the ground. Fellow Daoist Xian Yue didn't expect to make a move, she was only watching from the side. "And you wanted to kill me, I'm already letting you off easy by not killing you. If you don't want to accept it, fine, I'll kill you right now and take your spirit ring, then your things will be mine," Zhuowen said murderously. Heng Wu's heart trembled, but he didn't say a word and quickly took out 2 more half-step heaven-breaching grade divine herbs. Seeing Zhuowen swiftly put away the 2 half-step heaven-breaching grade divine herbs, Heng Wu's heart was bleeding. He glared fiercely at the petrified Sai Yang Bo not far away. If it weren't for this bastard hurriedly calling him out, he wouldn't have suffered such humiliation, nor would he have suffered such a great loss. Sai Yang Bo felt the old ancestor's unfriendly gaze and trembled in fear, but his heart was filled with endless regret. He really regretted provoking this Zhuowen. Who would have thought that a mere guest elder of the Demon Saint Palace would be so powerful? This was simply unbelievable. Today, I am here on the orders of the great guardian of the Demon Saint Palace to issue this edict. I hope you can temporarily withdraw from the Demon Saint Heavenly City. Do you have any objections? Zhuowen took out the imperial edict. The golden words on the imperial edict emitted a resplendent golden light. He looked at everyone from Golden Silk Divine Sect and God Peng Sect. Everyone who caught his gaze subconsciously lowered their heads, not daring to look at Zhuowen. This was an expert more terrifying than their old ancestor. How could they dare to look directly at him? Xian Yue sighed and cupped her fists at Zhuowen. "Since fellow Daoist Zhuowen has spoken, my Golden Silk Sect will definitely not have any objections. Within 3 days, my Golden Silk Sect will definitely withdraw from the Demon Saint Heavenly City." Heng Wu wasn't willing to be outdone. He quickly added, "My God Peng Sect too." "All right. I will wait here for 3 days. After you have completely withdrawn from the Demon Saint Heavenly City, I will return to the Demon Saint Palace," Zhuowen said, then sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes to rest. Xian Yue and Heng Wu quickly ordered Hong Wan and Sai Yang Bo to arrange for people to evacuate this temporary cave dwelling from the Demon Saint Heavenly City. Then, Xianye and Heng Wu quickly came to Zhuowen's side. Fellow Daoist Zhuo, are you really a guest guardian of the Demon Saint Palace? Xianye asked cautiously. Heng Wu's face was pale. He was beaten up badly by Zhuowen and his injuries were quite severe. He still didn't dare to go back to treat his injuries, so he stayed on the side and carefully watched Zhuowen, afraid that he would do something wrong and provoke Zhuowen to attack him again. Do I need to lie to you? Zhuowen said indifferently. Xianye smiled embarrassedly. Xianye isn't making wild guesses, but with fellow Daoist Zhuo's strength, even the Grand Guardian of the Demon Saint Palace is no match for you. Yet, the Demon Saint Palace only gave you an idle position like a guest guardian, and even issued an edict for you to come personally. Isn't this a little too disrespectful to you? Fellow Daoist Xianye is right. With fellow Daoist Zhuo's strength, you should be the Grand Guardian of the Demon Saint Palace. That Sun Hongru doesn't have the qualifications to sit in the Grand Guardian's position, he should give it to fellow Daoist Zhuo. Heng Wu quickly agreed. Zhuowen knew that the Sun Hongru Heng Wu mentioned was the name of the Grand Guardian of the Demon Saint Palace. Hearing the two's flattery and instigation, Zhuowen shook his head and said, I'm not interested in the Grand Guardian's position. The reason I entered the Demon Saint Palace is to find a person. Once I find the person I'm looking for, I will leave the Demon Saint Palace. Heng Wu and Xianye looked at each other. They didn't expect that an expert like Zhuowen would willingly come to the Demon Saint Palace as a guest guardian for a single person. Just who was it that had such charisma to make such a powerhouse willingly wait in the Demon Saint Palace? Chapter 3562. Scapegoat. These 2 9 cauldron chi gathering pills are quite beneficial to your cultivation. I took the liberty to ask you to leave this time, so take these 2 divine pills as compensation for your service. Zhuowen took out 2 shining divine pills and handed them to Xianye and Heng Wu. What? 9 cauldron chi gathering pills? These are the best divine pills for 4th blight cultivators. Fellow Daoist Zhuo, these divine pills are so precious, are you really giving them to us? Xianye's hands trembled as she received the divine pills. She was too excited. She had just broken through to 4th blight not long ago and hadn't completely stabilized her cultivation. These 9 cauldron chi gathering pills were simply timely rain for her. Heng Wu's reaction was far worse than hers. He trembled all over and even knelt down to express his gratitude to Zhuowen. Fellow Daoist Zhuo, I, Xianye, will never forget today's kindness. Xianye wasn't to be outdone when she saw Heng Wu kneeling down to express his gratitude to Zhuowen. Zhuowen waved his hand and said indifferently, I don't like to owe others. I forced you to leave on your own accord, so these 2 divine pills are just compensation. Zhuowen was now a half-step heaven-breaking grade pill refiner. These 2 9 cauldron chi gathering rejuvenation pills were extremely precious to Heng Wu and Xianye, but to Zhuowen, they were nothing more than ordinary pills. He could easily refine them with 100% success rate, and the divine pills he refined were of unique grade. After Heng Wu and Xianye expressed their gratitude to Zhuowen, they couldn't wait to enter their cave abodes in the depths of their territory. They planned to use the 9 cauldron chi gathering pills to completely stabilize their cultivation. 3 days later, the Golden Silk Sect and Divine Peng Sect were ready to leave. Xianye and Heng Wu led the cultivators of the 2 sects and left Demon Divine City in a grandiose manner. Zhuowen stood in the ruins of the Spirit Phoenix Trading Company and silently watched the disciples of the 2 sects leave. He knew that Golden Silk Sect and Divine Peng Sect were only leaving temporarily. Their sects had lost a peak 3rd blight cultivator each. This loss was too great and they would definitely demand an explanation from Demon Divine Palace. In the future, these 2 sects would definitely make a comeback. By then, he wouldn't be in Demon Divine Palace anymore. In Demon Divine City, many Yarrow cultivators were surprised to find that the disciples of Golden Silk Sect and Divine Peng Sect who had been staying in Demon Divine City had left one after another. Although most didn't know what was going on, they still cheered and celebrated. While Golden Silk Sect and Divine Peng Sect were in Demon Divine Heavenly City, most of the demon cultivators were scared witless and under great pressure. Now that the 2 sects had left the Demon Divine Sky City, many cultivators heaved a sigh of relief and no longer felt the pressure. After watching the cultivators of the two sects leave, Zhuowen returned to the Demon Saint Palace. Within the Guardian Hall of the Demon Saint Palace, Chief Guardian Sun Hongru was pacing back and forth, his brows tightly knitted. It's been so many days. Sun Hongru muttered to himself. He had a bad premonition. These few days, he had been sending messages to Shu Yuan. However, these messages were like stones sinking into the sea. There was no reply at all. This made Sun Hongru worried that Shu Yuan might have met with an accident. Thinking of this, Sun Hongru's heart sank. He knew that if something really happened to Shu Yuan, the responsibility would all fall on him. Once Demon Divine Peng sect came out of seclusion, he would definitely look for Shu Yuan. If he couldn't find Shu Yuan, he would definitely blame it on him. Demon Divine Peng sect's blame was secondary. Shu Yuan was an important guest from the upper realm. If something happened to such an important guest and the upper realm experts pursued the responsibility, he would definitely be finished. Suddenly, a yarrow cultivator rushed in from outside the Divine Peng sect. What's the matter? Why are you in such a hurry? Sun Hongru was already in a bad mood. Now that he saw the yarrow cultivator barging in without his permission, Sun Hongru roared in anger. The yarrow cultivator was clearly frightened by Sun Hongru. He said submissively, "Great Guardian. That Guardian Zhuo is back." He said that he already brought Great Guardian's message to Golden Silk Sect and God Peng Sect. He also said that the two sects have already left Demon Divine Heavenly City. What? This Zhuowen actually didn't die? Sun Hongru was stunned. He ignored the yarrow cultivator and walked out of the hall. At the entrance of the Divine Peng sect, Zhuowen was dressed in a black robe. He stood tall with a calm expression. Great Guardian. Zhuowen cupped his hands in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. You brought my message to Golden Silk Sect and God Peng Sect. Sun Hongru regained his composure and asked coldly. Yes, I successfully brought the message to them. Moreover, they were very straightforward. They kept the message and left Demon Divine Heavenly City. Zhuowen smiled faintly. How is that possible? Golden Silk Sect and God Peng Sect have been in Demon Divine Heavenly City for so many days. If they were so easy to talk to, they wouldn't have destroyed the Spirit Phoenix Trading Company and stayed in Demon Divine Heavenly City for so long. Guardian Zhuo, are you fabricating the truth? In reality, you didn't even bring the edict. Sun Hongru looked at Zhuowen suspiciously. Zhuowen sneered in his heart but remained calm on the surface. I don't dare to disobey Great Guardian's orders. If Great Guardian doesn't believe me, you can send people to the ruins of the Spirit Phoenix Trading Company to take a look. The Great Guardian took a deep look at Zhuowen and sent out a message. Soon, his jade talisman received the message. After reading the message, his eyes were filled with shock. He sized up Zhuowen seriously and said in a deep voice, Guardian Zhuo, how did you do it? At this moment, Great Guardian was truly shocked. According to his spies, Golden Silk Sect and God Peng Sect really left Demon Divine Heavenly City. He found it hard to believe. Golden Silk Sect and God Peng Sect's old ancestors were early-stage Fourth Blight experts. How could they be so obedient? The two of them didn't kill this Zhuowen. Even if their tempers were good, why would they obediently leave Demon Divine Heavenly City? Haha. Great Guardian, this isn't my credit. It's all because of your power. After I went to issue the edict, Golden Silk Sect and God Peng Sect heard that it was Great Guardian's order. They were all scared to death and obediently packed up and left Demon Divine Heavenly City. Zhuowen said indifferently. So simple. Great Guardian found it hard to believe. What else? If Great Guardian doesn't have any other matters, I'll take my leave first. Zhuowen said and left the Guardian Hall without waiting for Great Guardian's reply. He didn't have any good impression of Great Guardian and didn't plan on staying here for long. He didn't want to waste time talking to him. Great Guardian looked at Zhuowen's departing figure and his face turned green and white. But soon, he recovered his calm and his eyes surged with light. Chapter 3563. When Zhuowen had just returned to Area D, he saw the Godhorn Protector hurrying over and blocking his path. Godly Horn looked at Zhuo with a doubtful look, then asked, Protector Zhuo, you're back? Didn't you go to the ruins of the Spirit Phoenix Trading Company to issue the Great Guardian's edict? Zhuo looked at the Divine Horn Guardian indifferently and said, I just came back from the ruins of the Spirit Phoenix Trading Company. I've already settled the issue of the edict. Ah! You've settled it. The Golden Silk Sect and the Divine Peng Sect didn't make things difficult for you? The Divine Horn Guardian asked in surprise as if he didn't see the indifference on Zhuowen's face. Haha, I have no enmity with the Golden Silk Sect and the Divine Peng Sect. Why would they make things difficult for me? Zhuo shook his head and continued, I followed the Great Guardian's instructions and went to the ruins of the Spirit Phoenix Trading Company to issue the edict. When the cultivators of the Golden Silk Sect and the Divine Peng Sect heard that it was the Great Guardian's edict, they all agreed and left the Demon Divine Sky City. The Divine Horn Guardian was stunned and asked, It's that simple? It's that simple. That's why everything went so smoothly for me this time. It's all thanks to the Great Guardian's reputation. Divine Horn Guardian, if there's nothing else, I'll return to my cave abode first. I still have some important matters to settle, Zhuo said with a smile. The Divine Horn Guardian came back to his senses and looked at Zhuowen's indifferent attitude. He said awkwardly, There's nothing else. Weren't you asking about the Saintess? Yesterday, the Saintess's closest maidservant returned to the Demon Divine Palace first. She brought news that the Saintess will return within a month. Brother Zhuo, I saw that you were so concerned about the Saintess, so I helped you pay attention. Zhuowen's eyes lit up when he heard that the Saintess of the Demon region would return within a month. He cupped his hands and said, Then I'll have to trouble you, Divine Horn Guardian. What's our relationship? You don't have to be so polite. The Divine Horn Guardian laughed heartily and continued, Brother, since you have matters to attend to, you can return to your cave abode first. If there's anything, just send me a message. I'll definitely be there as soon as possible. Zhuo smiled faintly. After cupping his hands in farewell, he returned to Area D looking at Zhuowen's receding figure. The smile on the Divine Horn Protector's face disappeared completely, replaced by a frosty expression. He knew very well that his previous inaction had already caused Zhuo to hold a grudge against him, and cracks had already appeared in their relationship. Originally, he believed that Zhuo was targeted by the Great Guardian and was sent to issue the unreasonable edict to Golden Silk Sect and God Peng Sect. This would definitely infuriate Golden Silk Sect and God Peng Sect. At that time, Zhuo would definitely not be able to survive. But now, not only did Zhuo appear in front of him alive, but he also found out that the people of Golden Silk Sect and God Peng Sect had already left the Demon Divine Sky City one after another. This was too unbelievable. He didn't believe that Zhuo said that it was because of the Great Guardian's edict that Golden Silk Sect and God Peng Sect retreated so obediently. If that was the case, then the Great Guardian's power could really intimidate the two old ancestors of Golden Silk Sect and God Peng Sect. These two sects wouldn't have barged into Demon Divine Sky City and committed crimes. Then, the reason why the two sects retreated from Demon Divine Sky City was not because of the Great Guardian, but because of Zhuo. However, the Divine Horn Protector found it inconceivable that Zhuo had arrived. Moreover, this child was unharmed. Could it be that the two old ancestors of Golden Silk Sect and God Peng Sect were incompetent and were intimidated by this person? This Zhuo is not simple. The Divine Horn Protector was filled with fear towards Zhuo. At the same time, he sighed. He knew that his previous actions in front of the Great Guardian had disappointed Zhuo. There were cracks in their relationship. However, the Divine Horn Protector wasn't worried. He knew that as long as Zhuo was still in Demon Divine Palace, they would have a common enemy, which was the Great Guardian. Even if Zhuo was very dissatisfied with his previous actions, he would not rely on the Great Guardian's side. They were grasshoppers standing on the same rope. After returning to the cave residence, Zhuo gently shook his head. He was completely disappointed with the Divine Horn Protector. He thought that the Divine Horn Protector was a sincere person, but now he knew that this person was actually a hypocrite. After lamenting for a while, Zhuo didn't take it to heart. He didn't join Demon Divine Palace for long-term development, but for Mu Chunxue. Once he found Mu Chunshue, he would immediately leave Demon Divine Palace. He really didn't care about the Divine Horn Protector's thoughts. Zhuowen sat cross-legged on the futon and immediately grabbed a glowing divine soul from the outside world. This divine soul had the appearance of a young man. At this moment, his divine soul was dim and weak. It was obvious that his divine soul had suffered serious injuries. The moment the young man's soul saw Zhuowen, his entire body trembled and he hurriedly begged for mercy. "Fellow Daoist, I was possessed and wanted to escape. I ruined our cooperation, but I won't do it now. I'm willing to swear on my inner demon that I won't do anything strange in the future. If I ruin our cooperation, I'll die without a burial place." This young man was naturally Xu Yuan from Huxley's 100 Domains. At this moment, Xu Yuan was in an extremely difficult situation. His divine soul was seriously damaged and very dim, as if it would disappear at any time. He looked hopefully at Zhuowen and swore a heavy oath, hoping to change Zhuowen's mind and cooperate with him again. "Xu Yuan, your life is now in my hands. Do you think there's still a need for me to cooperate with you?" Zhuowen sneered. Xu Yuan's face froze and he said in a deep voice, "Dao friend. After all, I'm Huxley's man. If I'm killed, my young master will know immediately. You're completely falling out with Huxley. Although your Xuannong clan is ranked higher than Huxley, it's not much higher. If you provoke Huxley's anger because of this, it's not a wise choice." Zhuowen said indifferently, "Don't worry, I won't kill you." Hearing this, Xu Yuan was relieved and his tone eased a lot. "Dao friend, you're a smart person. Killing me won't do you any good. As long as you don't kill me, I'll agree to any conditions." Zhuowen nodded and continued, "You just mentioned your young master. Who is he? Tell me about him." Xu Yuan sighed. "My young master is one of Huxley's many direct descendants. In the Huxley realm, he's a genius with amazing talent. This unremarkable starry sky fruit was discovered by my young master. He secretly sent me down to carry out a mission." "What's the cultivation of your young master? Will he descend to this lower realm?" Zhuowen asked. Chapter 3564. Xu Yuan looked at Zhuowen with a strange gaze, and said, "Fellow Daoist, you're joking with me, right? If my young master could descend to the lower realm, why would he send me down? Didn't your master not descend, and only sent you down to be the vanguard? The lower realm's starry sky is a low-level starry sky after all. Whether it's energy or laws, they're all incomplete and far from being comparable to the 100 outer realms. Breaking heaven tier elites are too strong, and it's very difficult for them to descend to the lower realm's starry sky. Otherwise, they'll be firmly suppressed by the laws of the ancient primordial tree, and may even die. Unless they have a powerful treasure that can suppress cultivation, but this kind of treasure is really too precious. Although my young master has it, he's still reluctant to use it. Besides this, it's self-severing cultivation. This kind of drawback is too great, and very few people will use this method. Besides these two methods, it's sending cultivators below breaking heaven tier to scout the way." Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes flickered, and he recalled Bing Hui who had descended to this starry sky. At that time, Bing Hui had said that he was a breaking heaven tier cultivator, but in order to descend to this lower realm's starry sky, he'd probably severed his cultivation. One had to say that the foreign ghost tribe attached great importance to the Nti Shiva. They actually made a breaking heaven tier cultivator sever his cultivation and personally come down to escort Sakyamuni. "Now tell me about that primitive providence," Zhuowen said calmly. "Don't you know about primitive providence?" "You're still asking me?" Xu Yuan said solemnly. "I know part of it, but the person who sent me down didn't say in detail, and only told me to come and find it. Now, I want to understand more detailed information about primitive providence," Zhuowen said with a cold gaze. Although Xu Yuan was full of doubts, now that his life was in the other party's hands, he really didn't dare to refute. Next, Xu Yuan began to narrate about primitive providence, and Zhuowen became more and more shocked as he listened, and his expression became more and more gloomy and unsightly. Providence was a relatively illusory concept that couldn't be seen or touched, but to cultivators, it was extremely important. Any cultivator with great providence would often obtain great opportunities and cultivate extremely quickly, and their future achievements would be extremely extraordinary. From this, it could be seen how important providence was to cultivators. Cultivators had providence, and the starry sky also had providence. The providence was bestowed by the primordial tree at the beginning of its birth, and was called primitive providence. Primitive providence was the best cultivation panacea for the experts of the 100 outer realms. As long as one absorbed the providence of the starry sky, they would have many breakthroughs. Would have many bottlenecks. This kind of thing was a supreme treasure that could only be found by chance in the 100 domains. Actually, every starry sky fruit, starry sky, the primitive providence, but there were primitive providence. However, there was a limit to the starry skies that could truly extract the primordial karmic luck, and it had to be a starry sky that had never given birth to a heaven-shattering realm elite. Once a heaven-breaker cultivator appeared in the lower realm starry sky, the primeval karmic luck contained in the lower realm starry sky would dissipate and be reabsorbed by the primordial tree when the heaven-breaker cultivator tore open the shackles of the starry sky. On the primordial Hongmeng tree, although there were many starry sky fruits, most of them had produced heaven-breaker realm masters. Starry skies like the one Zhuo Wen was in, which had yet to produce a heaven-breaker realm master, were extremely rare. Moreover, there were too many starry sky fruits. Wanting to find a newly born starry sky fruit among so many was tantamount to finding a needle in a haystack. The young master behind Shu Yuan was also lucky to have accidentally found the location of the starry sky. After listening to Shu Yuan's explanation, he finally understood what primitive providence was. What will happen to this starry sky after the primitive providence is taken away? Zhuowen asked with a frown. Haha. If the primitive providence of the starry sky is lost to the primordial tree because of a providence realm expert, then it's nothing. The starry sky can still exist for 100 eras before being destroyed. But if it's forcefully taken away, then it's different. The starry sky will collapse in advance, and the whole starry sky fruit will be destroyed. Hee. The scene of a starry sky fruit collapsing is very spectacular. That's what I like to see the most. Shu Yuan said indifferently. Zhuowen's expression darkened. He didn't think that there would be such serious consequences after the primitive providence was taken away. Your young master sent you down to investigate the whereabouts of the primitive providence, right? You already have a clue? Zhuowen calmed down. He knew that it was useless for him to be anxious now. He had to find a corresponding countermeasure. The primitive providence was related to the survival of this starry sky. Zhuowen couldn't easily let Shu Yuan and the young master behind her take it away. Shu Yuan nodded, and said, "At present, there are some clues. However, I only know some general information. Moreover, I acted according to my young master's instructions for most things. The key information is actually still in my young master's hands." Zhuowen suddenly asked, "Aside from the demon realm, there are also the Xianmi heavenly realm and the primitive desolate heavenly realm in this starry sky. Why did you come to the demon realm?" When he first saw this Shu Yuan with the chief protector, he already suspected whether this demon saint palace was colluding with Shu Yuan. "It was my young master who asked me to come to the demon realm to cooperate with someone called the Eastern Emperor Tai Yi. My young master said that the Eastern Emperor Tai Yi is one of the oldest creatures in this starry sky and knows many secrets of this starry sky. As long as I explain the primitive providence to the Eastern Emperor Tai Yi and describe the benefits of the primitive providence, the Eastern Emperor Tai Yi will definitely be moved. Fellow Daoist, as long as you cooperate with me and follow the Eastern Emperor Tai Yi to find the primitive providence, the two of us can also share a share. The primitive providence can be said to be of great benefit to us." Speaking of this, Shu Yuan looked hopefully at Zhuowen. He felt that Zhuowen would definitely be moved. "I am very interested in the primitive providence. However, I don't trust you that much. How about this, you leave your soul imprint with me. As long as I find the primitive providence, I will return it to you," Zhuowen said indifferently. Shu Yuan's expression changed slightly. If he gave away his soul imprint, wouldn't he indirectly become Zhuowen's servant? And his life and death would be completely under Zhuowen's control. Xu Yuan, you have to know that you have no other choice now. If you don't hand over your soul imprint, I can't trust you. I can only send you on your way. I will find the Eastern Emperor Tai Yi myself. Won't that be fast? Zhuowen said with a faint smile. Xu Yuan's face was gloomy, and he finally agreed. Fellow Daoist, I hope you will keep your word. Xu Yuan sighed, stripped the soul imprint, and handed it to Zhuowen. Fellow Daoist Xu Yuan, don't worry. As long as I find the primitive providence, I will return this soul imprint without any hesitation. Zhuowen smiled, took Xu Yuan's soul imprint, and stimulated his soul energy to replenish Xu Yuan's soul. Xu Yuan's soul, which was originally dim, immediately burned brighter under the replenishment of Zhuowen's soul energy. What a powerful soul! Xu Yuan felt that his soul was recovering, and he was delighted. At the same time, he felt Zhuowen's soul energy, which was surging like a vast ocean, and his heart was filled with fear. Chapter 3565. Meet the Saintess, that's right. Don't tell your young master about me for now. We'll talk about it after we find the primordial providence. Zhuowen instructed solemnly after helping Xu Yuan repair his soul. Xu Yuan hurriedly acknowledged. His soul imprint was now completely under Zhuowen's control. His life and death were in Zhuowen's hands. He naturally didn't dare to disobey Zhuowen. After Xu Yuan's spirit had completely recovered, Zhuowen instructed Xu Yuan to leave on her own and look for the Great Protector. He learned from Xu Yuan that the head enforcer was very respectful when he found out that Xu Yuan was from the upper realm. If he knew that Xu Yuan's physical body was destroyed, he would definitely do everything he could to repair it. After all, Xu Yuan's cultivation was already so high. If he wanted to gather enough materials to repair his physical body, he would have to pay a hefty price. Zhuowen naturally wasn't willing to pay such a hefty price for Xu Yuan, so he sent Xu Yuan to find the head enforcer. After Xu Yuan's soul left the cave, Zhuowen took out the small bronze cauldron from the Great World. There were 9 obscure restrictions in the small bronze cauldron, and all of them were top-notch half-step heaven-breaker restrictions. When he returned to the demon divine Sky City, he had only deciphered a small portion of them. There was still some time before the Saintess returned to the demon divine palace. He planned to use this time to continue deciphering the restrictions in the small bronze cauldron. At this moment, the head enforcer was frowning in the Hall of Enforcers. Xu Yuan's absence made him realize that something might have happened to him. At that moment, he was considering how to shift the responsibility of Xu Yuan's disappearance onto Zhuowen. Zhuowen's attitude made him very unhappy. He was also surprised that Zhuowen actually made the Golden Silk Sect and Divine Peng Sect obediently leave the Demon Divine Sky City. This made the head enforcer faintly feel that this newly appointed guest enforcer wasn't simple. Just as the head enforcer was at his wit's end, his divine will sensed a powerful soul barging into the Hall of Enforcers. Who is it? How dare you barge into the Hall of Enforcers? The Great Guardian frowned and said angrily. However, he quickly realized that the aura of this soul was very familiar. It actually belonged to Xu Yuan. Young Master Xu Yuan? You. How did you end up like this? Chief Protector said in shock. Xu Yuan was a little embarrassed and said, Chief Protector, I had a little accident and my physical body was destroyed. Help me collect some materials to refine my physical body. During this time, I need to recuperate in seclusion. As she spoke, Xu Yuan sent a message into the Great Guardian's mind. When the Great Protector saw the list of materials that Xu Yuan had given him, he almost cried out. Most of the materials were extremely precious. Even he had to spend a lot of effort to obtain them. Looking at Xu Yuan, who was waiting patiently, the head protector sighed inwardly. He smiled and agreed. In the Great Guardian's heart, Xu Yuan came from the upper realm, had a noble status, and was knowledgeable. He definitely had to build a good relationship with such a person. Who knew, he might be able to recommend him to the upper realm in the future. Therefore, he wouldn't refuse any of Xu Yuan's requests and would try his best to satisfy her. Time gradually passed. Zhuowen was in the cave residence, concentrating on breaking the restrictions in the small bronze cauldron. As he continued to break the restrictions, Zhuowen's understanding of the array Dao became more and more profound. Moreover, as he continued to break the restrictions, virtual images would appear in the small cauldron. Most of these virtual images were scenes of the array Immortal Master refining pills for countless years. While observing these scenes, Zhuowen's understanding of the array Dao became more and more profound. When Zhuowen broke the seventh restriction, there was some movement in his cave residence. Someone was looking for him outside the cave residence. Zhuowen looked at the tiny bronze cauldron with slight regret. The last two restrictions on the tiny cauldron were of extremely high levels, and they were the most difficult to break through as well. The time required to break through them would probably be much more than the previous 7 restrictions. Zhuowen put away the small bronze cauldron and immediately opened the cave residence. He found the divine horn protector outside the cave residence. Seeing Zhuowen come out, the divine horn protector smiled and said, "Brother Zhuowen, I didn't disturb you, did I?" "No, divine horn protector, why are you looking for me?" Zhuowen asked calmly. The divine horn protector smiled and said, "I'm here to tell you a piece of good news. Lord Demon Saint came out of seclusion yesterday and is now rushing back to the Demon Saint Palace." "Oh, Lord Demon Saint came out of seclusion? Then he broke through?" Zhuowen raised his eyebrows and asked with interest. The divine horn protector's face was ruddy and he said excitedly, "Yes, Lord Demon Saint has broken through to the 5th blight. Our demon realm is about to rise. This time, Lord Demon Saint sent a message and asked our Demon Saint Palace to send out invitations. The Demon Saint Palace intends to invite all the forces of the demon realm to celebrate this grand occasion." Zhuowen smiled slightly. He was not as excited as the divine horn protector. The Demon Saint's breakthrough has nothing to do with him. He didn't join the Demon Saint Palace because of the Demon Saint. He also didn't worship the Demon Saint like the cultivators of the Demon Saint Palace. Also, the Saintess of the Demon Realm has returned to the Demon Saint Palace yesterday. The divine horn protector's next sentence immediately made Zhuowen short of breath. He said excitedly, "Divine horn protector, you said that the Saintess has returned?" But soon, Zhuowen suppressed his excitement. He knew that he couldn't show too much concern. Otherwise, it would easily arouse the suspicion of the divine horn protector. Yes, the Saintess was supposed to come back later. Now she has come back early. She should have received a message from Lord Demon Saint. The divine horn protector nodded and said, "Haha, divine horn protector, I have always admired the Saintess for a long time. I want to meet her. I wonder if you can help me arrange it." Zhuowen suppressed the excitement in his heart and looked at the divine horn protector. The divine horn protector didn't see Zhuowen's strange expression and said with a smile, "Of course, this is no problem. The Saintess and I have some friendship. If I invite her out to meet me, she will still give me face. Then, thank you very much, divine horn protector," Zhuowen said gratefully. The divine horn protector waved his hand, indicating that Zhuowen didn't need to be so polite. The divine horn protector also let out a sigh of relief. He had been a little worried that Zhuowen would bear a grudge against him because of the previous incident with the great protector. He wanted to do something to ease the relationship between him and Zhuowen. Now that Zhuowen had made such a request, he naturally wouldn't refuse. After all, it wasn't a big deal. Next, the divine horn protector took Zhuowen to the Saintess Hall. The Saintess Hall was in the southeast corner of the Demon Saint Palace. Its geographical location was considered the best in the Demon Saint Palace. With the divine horn protector leading the way, they basically didn't encounter any obstacles on their way to the Saintess Hall. Soon, the divine horn protector took Zhuowen to a beautiful back garden in the Saintess Hall. In the back garden, the sound of birds and the fragrance of flowers, elegant rockery, and clear streams formed a beautiful scenery. In the center of the back garden, there was a white jade pavilion. At this moment, in the pavilion, a woman wearing a veil sat in front of a white jade table. Behind her, 2 tall and beautiful maids stood. Chapter 3566. Recognition. Guardian Shenjiao, why have you come to see me so suddenly? The holy maiden stood up and asked the guardian Shenjiao in a clear voice. I hope the holy maiden won't be offended by our sudden visit. The divine horn is here because my friend has admired you for a long time and wants to get to know you. The guardian Shenjiao led Zhuowen to the pavilion and spoke politely. Oh, who is this? The holy maiden looked at Zhuowen and asked. Zhuowen was in disguise. Even if the holy maiden was really Mu Chunxue, she would not be able to recognize Zhuowen. His name is Zhuowen. He is the new foreign guardian of the Demon Saint Palace. The guardian Shen Jiao introduced. Zhuowen. The moment the saintess heard this name, her delicate body froze. Then, her pair of beautiful eyes repeatedly sized up Zhuowen, as if she wanted to see through Zhuowen. But very quickly, the holy maiden shook her head. Disappointment flashed across her eyes. Holy maiden, do you know Guardian Zhuo? The guardian Shen Jiao asked curiously. He had seen the holy maiden's strange behavior. Zhuowen's eyes were shining. He was sure that the holy maiden in front of him was Mu Chunxue. Otherwise, she would not have panicked when she heard his name. The holy maiden shook her head and said with a smile, I have an old acquaintance who is also called Zhuowen. He has the same name as Guardian Zhuo. Therefore, when I heard his name, I was reminded of the past and lost my composure. I am honored to have the same name as the holy maiden's old acquaintance. May I know how holy maiden's old acquaintance is related to holy maiden? Zhuowen cupped his fists and asked. The holy maiden looked at Zhuowen and said, it's all in the past. Guardian Zhuo will not be interested. Let's not talk about it. Zhuowen nodded and did not say anything. He was so excited that he almost sent a voice transmission to Mu Chunxue, but he held back. He knew that as long as he sent a voice transmission, the guardian Shen Jiao would notice. After all, it was his first time meeting the holy maiden. Sending a voice transmission to the holy maiden was obviously suspicious. Then, the guardian Shen Jiao, Zhuowen, and the holy maiden all sat down and began to chat. After about an hour, Zhuowen sent a voice transmission to the guardian. He wanted to talk to the holy maiden alone. The guardian Shen Jiao was translation. The guardian Shen Jiao. He looked at Zhuowen. Why? The holy maiden. Saint Lady, I still have some things to deal with. I may need to go back, so I will take my leave first. The sacred horn guardian stood up, cupped his hands, and left the Saint Lady Hall. The saintess glanced at Zhuowen. She had sensed that Zhuowen had sent a message to the god horn guardian. She knew that it was Zhuowen's request that the godly horn guardian suddenly left. Holy maiden, I have a very important matter that I need to tell you personally, Zhuowen said with a solemn expression. Protector Zhuo, feel free to speak your mind. The holy maiden smiled. Zhuowen glanced at the two maids behind the saintess and said, this news is of great importance. I can only tell you. Hearing this, the holy maiden frowned. After a moment of hesitation, she ordered the two maids behind her to leave. This protector Zhuo could easily send away the divine horn protector. Obviously, he was not a simple person. She did not want to offend such a person. Speak, the holy maiden said. Actually, I'm Zhuowen. Zhuowen said gently. The holy maiden was stunned. She frowned and said, Protector Zhuo, I know your name. You don't have to repeat it. Zhuowen shook his head, took off his disguise, and revealed his true face. He said, I'm Zhuowen, the old acquaintance you mentioned. The holy maiden was stunned. She stared blankly at Zhuowen. Suddenly, her beautiful eyes became misty, and two streams of tears flowed down her cheeks. My husband, is it really you? The next moment, the holy maiden threw herself into Zhuowen's arms. Zhuowen hugged Mu Chunxue tightly. He could smell the familiar fragrance on her body. Suddenly, his heart was filled with infinite pity. After so many years, he knew that Mu Chunxue had suffered a lot. However, he could not be by her side. This made his heart filled with guilt. Where have you been all these years? After I became the holy maiden of the monster realm, I took the opportunity to go out on missions to look for you. I went to the Xianmi heavenly domain and the primitive heavenly domain, but there was no news of you. I even went to Rika's old home, but Rika was no longer there. I heard that you took her away. I had a hard time looking for you. Mu Chunxue leaned her head on Zhuowen's shoulder. She hammered her fists on Zhuowen's chest as she wept. It was as if she wanted to vent all the grievances she had suffered all these years. Zhuowen hugged Mu Chunxue without saying a word. His eyes were also wet with tears. After a long time, Mu Chunxue finally stopped crying. She looked up at Zhuowen and deeply kissed Zhuowen. This kiss lasted for a long time, as if it would last until the end of time. When their lips parted, they had completely calmed down. My husband. How did you know I was in the Monster Saint Palace? Mu Chunxue smiled as she looked at Zhuowen and asked this. Zhuowen told her about how he saw her back in the primitive heavenly domain and began to suspect that she was Mu Chunxue. In order to confirm his suspicions, he came to the Monster Saint Palace to confirm it. The final result did not disappoint Zhuowen. The Holy Maiden of the Monster Realm was indeed Mu Chunxue. It's good that you have eyes and can see through me. Otherwise, it really would have been hard for you to find me, Mu Chunxue said with a soft sigh. Chen Shui, how did you become the Holy Maiden of the Monster Realm? If it wasn't for the fact that I saw your back and had my suspicions, I definitely wouldn't have connected you to the Holy Maiden of the Monster Realm. Zhuowen hugged Mu Chunxue as he asked this in a confused voice. It's a long story. It's actually like this. Mu Chunxue began to tell him what happened in the past. In the past, the Phoenix people's Great Elder and Third Elder brought her to find the origin of the Phoenix bloodline, coming to the old site of the Heavenly Armor Star. Mu Chunxue was a blessing in disguise as she was saved by the dying Phoenix. Because she had the Phoenix bloodline, the Phoenix left its inheritance to her. By the time Mu Chunxue had completely accepted the inheritance, the Phoenix god beast had used up its last bit of life force and had fallen. After the Phoenix fell, Donghuang Tai felt the aura of the Phoenix. He found the Phoenix's corpse in the hidden little world and found Mu Chunxue. He felt the pure Phoenix bloodline in Mu Chunxue and saw the limitless potential in Mu Chunxue, so he let Mu Chunxue become the Holy Maiden of the Monster Realm. He would use all his strength to train Mu Chunxue. At that time, Mu Chunxue only wanted to obtain enough strength to take revenge on the Phoenix people. At that time, although Mu Chunxue had obtained the Phoenix's inheritance, she was still too weak. So, she agreed to Donghuang Tai and became the Holy Maiden of the Monster Realm. Chapter 3567. Mo Yang without death status. When I learned that the person who exterminated the Phoenix people was called Long Wen, I knew that Long Wen was you. Mu Chunxue said this before rolling her eyes at Zhuowen and saying, the Phoenix people are so strong and you actually dared to charge in alone. If something happened, what would I do? Zhuowen gave an embarrassed smile and hugged Mu Chunxue as he said, your husband is blessed with great fortune, how could anything happen to him? Yes. You are blessed with great fortune, but you can't be too emotional in the future. Your life is the most important thing, however, you charging into the Phoenix people alone, I'm still very happy, Mu Chunxue said with a smile. Zhuowen kissed Mu Chunxue's forehead and said, Chen Shui, leave the demonic beast Saint Palace and come with me. Father, mother, and the others are all in the outside world. If they know that you're back, they'll definitely be very happy. Mu Chunxue shook her head and said, husband, the demonic beast saint has treated me well. In order to help me break through to the half-step heaven-breaking realm, he did not hesitate to use the energy of the 9th level to help me consolidate my cultivation. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to cultivate to the second heaven's decay so quickly. Hearing this, Zhuowen was a bit helpless. The demonic beast Saint Donghuang Tai had indeed helped Mu Chunxue a lot. Now that he had let Mu Chunxue leave, it was indeed a bit hard to explain. Chen Shui, then do you plan on staying in the demonic beast Saint Palace like this? Zhuowen asked with a frown. Mu Chunxue shook her head and said, I don't have this kind of plan. As long as I can enter the 9th level and pass through the 9th level, I can leave the demonic beast Saint Palace. This is the rule that the demonic beast Saint set for me. Before I can pass through the 9th level, I will continue to help the demonic beast saint. In the future, when he reaches the peak and his cultivation reaches the heaven-breaking realm, he said that he was willing to give the demonic beast Saint Palace to me. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded. Mu Chunxue had told him that the demonic beast saint had helped her a lot. In terms of gratitude, Mu Chunxue couldn't just leave like this. All right, Chen Shui, I respect your decision, but before this, I will find that demonic saint to explain our relationship. I will remind him that you cannot suffer any grievances in the demon saint palace. Otherwise, even if he is a demon saint, I will teach him a lesson. Zhuowen said proudly. After he reached the third blight, his strength had increased greatly. Although his original body's strength couldn't compare to a fifth blight cultivator, if he combined with his avatar, the demon saint wouldn't be able to do anything to him. The current him had the qualifications to the demonic beast saint palaces Shuiyang. Mu Chunxue gave a laugh and said, all right. Stop boasting. Sir Demonic Beast Saint has already broken through to the fifth blight. If you want to remind him, it might not be enough yet. However, I believe that husband will definitely catch up to the Demonic Beast Saint and become the strongest person under the starry sky. Zhuowen revealed a faint smile. He did not explain his strength and continued to say, Chen Shui, do you want to see your parents, Han Tian, and the others? They also came to the Demonic Beast Saint Palace? Mu Chunxue asked in a surprised voice. Rika has already moved to my large world and Wushang has also awakened. Mentioning Moyan Wushang, Zhuowen's expression became complicated. Wushang is awake. Is that true? Then bring me over to take a look. When Mu Chunxue heard that Moyan Wushang had awakened, she was very happy. She could not wait to enter the large world to take a look. Zhuowen revealed a faint smile and brought Mu Chunxue into the large world. Mu Chunxue had already taken off her veil, revealing her beautiful face. The two of them arrived at Rika and the Rika high-level members naturally came out to greet them. She is Chen Shui. Chen Shui is back. Feng Xiao and Long Xiaotian walked in front. Feng Xiao saw Mu Chunxue with a single glance. She was stunned at first, but then she excitedly rushed forward and tightly hugged Mu Chunxue. Chen Shui, you've suffered all these years. Look at how thin you've become. My heart aches just looking at you. Feng Xiao cried tears of joy and her words became incoherent. Mu Chunxue gently hugged Feng Xiao and said, Mother, aren't I living well now? The matters of the past are already in the past. Mu Chunxue had already married Zhuowen and was Zhuowen's wife, so Zhuowen's parents were Mu Chunxue's parents. Mu Chunxue hugged Feng Xiao and then looked at Long Xiaotian in front of her. She said with a smile, Father, Chen Shui has made you all worry. Ha, ha. Chen Shui, it's good that you're back. Long Xiaotian did not say much, but he revealed his true feelings. His eyes were misty. Lu Hantian, Wu Dai, and many other people who were familiar with Mu Chunxue came forward to ask about her well-being. The atmosphere was very harmonious. Everyone had reunited after a long time, so naturally they had many things to say. Zhuowen watched this scene with a faint smile. Then he came to Long Xiaotian's side and said in a low voice, Father, why hasn't Wushang come out? Did you inform her? Long Xiaotian's eyes dimmed and he said with a sigh, I have already informed Wushang, but she did not respond. Moreover, she has been cooped up in her room during this period of time, not seeing anyone. Hearing this, Zhuowen frowned. He really did not expect that after Moyan Wushang woke up, his entire person would change. Moreover, he found that Moyan Wushang was faintly alienating them. This made Zhuowen a little anxious. He did not know where the problem was. Where's Wushang? Didn't you say that she had already woken up? Why don't I see her? Mu Chunxue chatted with everyone for a while. When she did not see Moyan Wushang, she could not help but ask in surprise. Everyone, who had been chatting harmoniously, fell silent at the mention of Mo Yang of War. Even Feng Xiao was no exception. Mu Chunxue felt that something was wrong. She looked at Feng Xiao and said, Mother, did something happen? Feng Xiao glanced at Zhuowen and said, didn't you tell Chen Shui about that matter? Zhuowen smiled bitterly and said, I didn't have time to tell her. Sensing that something was amiss, Mu Chen Shui hurriedly asked, What happened? Are you hiding something from me? It's like this. After Wushang woke up, her personality seemed to have changed greatly. Feng Xiao sighed softly and began to talk about how after Moyan Wushang woke up, he closed the door and did not see anyone. Moreover, his personality had completely changed, as if he did not recognize anyone. But so far, no one has seen him. Could it be that he lost his memory? Mu Chunxue frowned and continued, I have to go and take a look. Husband, take me there now. Zhuo Wen hesitated for a bit, then nodded and said, okay. You go and try, maybe he will see you. Zhuo Wen brought Mu Chunxue to Moyan Wushang's pavilion. Mu Chunxue tried to knock on the door and told him that it was Mu Chunxue. However, Mu Chunxue waited outside the pavilion for a long time, but there was no movement in the room, let alone someone to open the door. If Mu Chunxue's divine sense hadn't found Moyan Wushang in the room, she would have thought that there was no one in the room. She saw Moyan Wushang sitting on the edge of the bed with a dull look in his eyes. He did not respond to her calls. Husband, what the hell is going on? Wushang doesn't seem to recognize me at all. Mu Chunxue didn't force her way in, but looked at Zhuo Wen and said worriedly, I don't know what's going on. When Wushang woke up, I checked her body and soul. There was no problem, but she woke up like this. I can't find the specific reason. Chapter 3568. Mu Chunxue hesitated for a moment and sighed, then let Wushang rest for a while. I won't disturb her. Zhuo Wen nodded. Mo Yang Wushang's condition was indeed very bad. It hadn't changed since Zhuo Wen left. This made Zhuo Wen a little worried, but now he had no way to solve Mo Yang Wushang's problem. He could only watch. Zhuo Wen and Mu Chunxue bid farewell to Feng Xiao, Long Xiaotian, and the others and left the outside world. When they returned to the pavilion, they found that the two maids who had retreated had returned. They were standing anxiously in the pavilion. When they saw Zhuo Wen and Mu Chunxue appear out of thin air, the two maids sighed with a strange look in their eyes. They weren't stupid. They knew that the two of them should have gone to a small world. But what made the two maids feel strange was that the Holy Maiden had followed them into this small world. It was very dangerous to enter someone else's small world. If that person had evil intentions, the cultivator who entered the small world would be killed no matter how high his cultivation was. Why did the two of you suddenly barge in without my order? When Mu Chunxue left the outside world, she had put on her veil again. At this moment, when she saw the two maids, her pretty face was gloomy and she scolded them. The two maids quickly knelt down. One of the maids said, Please forgive us, Holy Maiden. It's because the Great Guardian asked us to come in and report to you. He said that he had something important to discuss with you. If we were uneasy, we wouldn't dare to disobey the orders of the Holy Maiden. The Great Guardian? Why did he come to me? Mu Chunxue frowned. We don't know. The Great Guardian only said that it was urgent, so we. The two maids trembled and didn't dare to look at Mu Chunxue. Get up. Let the Great Guardian in. Mu Chunxue did not have any intention of blaming them. With a wave of her hand, the two maids retreated as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. Although Mu Chunxue was the Holy Maiden and only took orders from the demon saint Donghuang Tai, the Great Enforcer was still the second most powerful person in the demon saint palace. Mu Chunxue naturally had to give him some face. Zhuo Wen's expression changed slightly. He didn't expect that the Great Guardian would actually come back to see the Saint Lady. He transmitted his voice to Mu Chunxue and told her about how the Great Guardian had targeted him during this period of time. Mu Chunxue was taken aback. Soon after, she was a little annoyed that the Great Protector was targeting Zhuo Wen for no reason. However, when she found out that Zhuo Wen was invited into the Demon Saint Palace by the God Horn Protector, she revealed a look of relief. It was no secret in the Demon Saint Palace that the Great Protector and the God Horn Protector didn't get along. Mu Chunxue reminded Zhuo Wen to be even more wary of the God Horn Protector. The latter was not a good person either. Soon, the maid led the Great Protector to the back garden. As soon as the Great Protector arrived, he saw Zhuo Wen sitting next to Mu Chunxue in the pavilion. He was startled at first, then subconsciously looked at Zhuo Wen and asked, Why are you here? Zhuo Wen sat down leisurely and glanced at the Great Protector. Great Protector, if you can come here, why can't I? The Saint Lady's name has long been well known in the demon realm. I have admired the Saint Lady for a long time and have specially come to visit the Saint Lady. Mu Chunshua rolled her eyes at Zhuowen but didn't say anything. The Great Protector sneered. You admire the Saint Lady? Let me tell you, you'd better not eat the meat of a swan. The Saint Lady is out of your league. Speaking of this, the Great Protector looked at Mu Chunshua, and his face was suddenly full of smiles. He said, Saint Lady, this person has spoken disrespectfully to you as soon as he came. How can such a person stay in the Saint Lady temple? Saint Lady should directly drive him out. Mu Chunshua looked at the Great Protector indifferently and said, Great Protector, this is the Saint Lady temple, not your hall of protectors. This person is my guest. Why should I drive him out? Also, don't you think it's a bit rude to ask me to drive him away as soon as you come? Zhuowen was her husband, and the Great Protector's tone was unfriendly to Zhuowen as soon as he arrived. Mu Chunshua naturally felt uncomfortable and spoke to the Great Protector very rudely. The Great Protector was suddenly speechless and a little confused. He was just talking about Zhuowen. Why did the Saint Lady have such a big reaction? Great Protector, you should pay attention to what you say. You are not young anymore, and you have one foot in the coffin. Don't you know this? Zhuowen said with a smile. The Great Protector was furious. How could Zhuowen say that? He was clearly saying that he was about to die. However, he saw that the Saint Lady did not react, so he suppressed his anger. This time, he came to the Saint Lady temple to ask for a favor, so he naturally could not screw it up. Zhuowen would have time to deal with this when he returned, so he was not in a hurry. Great Protector, why have you come to the Saint Lady temple this time? After Mu Chunshua asked the Great Protector to sit down, she went straight to the point. The Great Protector rubbed his hands and said with a smile, Actually, it's like this. I heard that the Saint Lady temple has the 7-colored sacred land. I need the 7-colored sacred land urgently, so I came to ask for some. The Saint Lady raised her eyebrows and said, The main function of the 7-colored sacred land is to repair the physical body. Great Protector, who do you want to use the 7-colored sacred land for? Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He guessed that the Great Protector's purpose of asking for the 7-colored sacred land was to restore Shu Yuan's physical body. The physical body of a friend of mine has collapsed, and now only his divine soul is left, so he urgently needs a treasure to repair his physical body. This 7-colored sacred land is just right. I hope that the Saint Lady can give me some 7-colored sacred land for the sake of our friendship, the Great Protector said with a smile. I do have some 7-colored sacred land, but this thing is very valuable. I can't give it to you casually, unless you exchange it with something of equal value. Mu Chunshua said lightly. The Great Protector nodded, took out a golden divine elixir, and handed it to Mu Chunshua. This divine elixir was a half-step sky-level divine elixir. Its medicinal properties were strong, and it exuded a blazing elixir pattern. It was difficult to look at directly. Mu Chunshua took it and observed it. She nodded, took out a palm-sized 7-colored sacred land, and handed it to the Great Protector. After the Great Protector received the 7-colored sacred land, he did not stay in the Saint Lady temple for long. Instead, he left in a hurry. Of course, before the Great Protector left, he glared fiercely at Zhuowen. His eyes were extremely unfriendly. Husband. The Great Protector is not weak. He is already at the early stage of the 4th decay. You are only at the 3rd decay. Don't fight him head-on in the future. You will be at a disadvantage. Mu Chunshua looked at Zhuowen worriedly. Chapter 3569. After the Great Guardian obtained the Rainbow Sacred Land, he returned to the Guardian Hall, but his expression was not very good. Great Protector, you don't look happy. Did something happen to you? You didn't find the Rainbow Sacred Land? Shu Yuan's divine soul was sitting on a futon in the center of the Guardian Hall. A physical body was floating in front of him. He could not help but ask in surprise when he saw the Great Guardian's unhappy expression. I got the Rainbow Sacred Land smoothly, mainly because I met that damn Guardian Zhuo in the Saint Lady Temple. That guy is a lackey of the Divine Horn Guardian, and together with the Divine Horn Guardian, they have been targeting me everywhere. They even embarrassed me in front of the Saint Lady. They are simply audacious. He is just a guest guardian of the Demon Saint Palace, and he dares to go against me. If I don't teach him a lesson, I am not worthy of being the great guardian of the Demon Saint Palace. The great guardian's face became extremely gloomy when he mentioned Zhuoan. Shu Yuan's divine soul took the rainbow sacred land. After hearing the great guardian's words, he said with a dignified expression, "Great guardian, you'd better not provoke Zhuoan." "Ah. Why?" The great protector was shocked. How could the noble young master Shu Yuan in front of him advise him not to provoke Zhuoan? This was really unreasonable. Because he is not someone you can provoke. Shu Yuan was silent for a moment, then sighed and said no more. Instead, he put the rainbow sacred land into the physical body prototype in front of him and began to refine it. With the rainbow sacred land, Shu Yuan was confident that he could completely refine the physical body before the Demon Saint returned to the Demon Saint Palace. Of course, that was all. If he wanted to restore his strength, it would take a lot of time. The Great Protector was extremely depressed. What did Shu Yuan mean by that? Zhuoan was someone he could not afford to provoke. Wasn't that guy just a guest guardian? However, he disapproved of Shu Yuan's words. As far as he was concerned, Zhuoan didn't have any background at all. As the Grand Guardian, it wasn't easy for him to casually crush Zhuoan. Zhuoan spent a little more time with Mu Chenxue. He did not leave the Saint Lady Hall. Instead, he spent the night there. Of course, in Mu Chenxue's bedroom, all the servants had already been sent away. Only Zhuoan and Mu Chenxue were there. "Husband. I suddenly want a child that belongs to both of us." On the luxurious bed, Mu Chenxue put her arms around Zhuoan's neck and said softly. In the past, Zhuoan and Mu Chenxue had made love many times. However, Mu Chenxue had never wanted to have children. Therefore, although they were husband and wife, they did not have children. But now, Mu Chenxue took the initiative to ask for a child, which surprised Zhuoan. "Chen Shui, you always said that it was too early. Why do you want a child now?" Zhuoan kissed Mu Chenxue and said with a faint smile. Mu Chenxue's beautiful eyes stared at Zhuoan. Her eyes were filled with sadness as she said, "We've experienced too many hardships and we've been separated most of the time. I don't want to leave any regrets. If anything happens to us in the future, I'm afraid I'll regret it. So, I want to have a child as soon as possible." Zhuoan hugged Mu Chenxue and said in a soft voice, "Chen Shui, relax. In this starry sky, as long as I'm here, no one can separate us." Mu Chenxue revealed a sweet smile and threw herself into Zhuoan's body. The two of them made love to each other. On the luxurious bed, there was no end to the spring scenery. The next morning, everyone in the Demon Saint Palace was in a hurry, making all the preparations for the banquet. From the 5 great protectors to the ordinary disciples, everyone was busy with their work. The entire Monster Saint Palace was filled with an excited atmosphere. Everyone knew that Sir Monster Saint had come out of closed-door cultivation and his cultivation had increased by another level. This was a matter of great joy. All the cultivators of the Monster Saint Palace were filled with pride. Many invitations had been sent out several days ago. Many powers had come from all over the monster domain to Monster Saint Heavenly City. There were even many hidden powers that couldn't help coming. God Horn Protector. Why don't I see Protector Zhuo? The banquet will begin at noon and Protector Zhuo is a guest protector, yet he isn't here. Does he even have the awareness of being a protector of the Monster Saint Palace? The Great Protector looked around and did not see Zhuoan's figure. He looked at the God Horn Protector and spoke with a stern expression. The God Horn Protector was a bit embarrassed. He had gone to Zhuoan's cave early in the morning to find Zhuoan, but he found that Zhuoan was not there. This surprised the God Horn Protector. He wondered if Zhuoan had stayed out all night at the Saint Lady Hall. Thinking of this, the God Horn Protector's expression became strange. He found it unbelievable. The Holy Maiden of the Demon Realm was the #1 genius of the Demon Realm. She was also the successor of the Demon Saint Palace. Her status in the demon realm and the demon saint palace was extremely high. Otherwise, the demon saint palace would not have specially built a holy maiden palace for the holy maiden to live in. Moreover, the Saint Lady Hall was even more magnificent than their guardian hall. It could be seen how much the monster saint valued the Saint Lady. It was precisely because of the holy maiden's transcendent status and peerless beauty that countless young geniuses in the demon territory flocked to her. Moreover, there were countless pursuers that were innumerable. But in the end, no one could move the Saint Lady. She was even indifferent to those suitors and turned a blind eye to them. Among these young talents, there were many top geniuses, but no one could move the Saint Lady. However, Zhuowen and the Saint Lady had only met once, and that guy had spent the night at the Saint Lady Hall. The Saint Lady had acquiesced. This was incredible. Of course, the God Horn Protector did not think too deeply. For example, when Zhuowen and the Saint Lady had reached the final stage of their relationship, he simply thought that Zhuowen had stayed in the Saint Lady Hall for one night. After all, the Saint Lady Hall was a building that belonged only to the Saint Lady. In the past, no male cultivator had ever stayed there for a night. God Horn Protector, are you listening to me or not? The dissatisfied voice of the Great Guardian awakened the God Horn Protector. The latter came back to his senses and had to bite the bullet and say, Guardian Zhua should still be in the cave residence. I will go and call him. No need to look for him. I am here. Suddenly, a leisurely voice came. The Great Guardian, the God Horn Protector, and the others immediately saw a figure slowly walking in the direction of the Saint Lady Hall. It was Zhuowen. You came from the Saint Lady Hall? You stayed in the Saint Lady Hall last night? The Great Guardian looked in the direction of Zhuowen and asked in surprise. The other protectors also looked incredulous. The Saint Lady's status in the Demon Saint Palace was too high. Her talent and strength were extremely terrifying. In the future, she was one of the best candidates for the Demon Saint Palace. They all had feelings for her, but they had never stayed in the Saint Lady Hall. However, this was just a guest protector. What did he do to stay in the Saint Lady Hall? Did the Saint Lady not kick him out? Last night, I discussed with the Saint Lady. The Saint Lady appreciated my Tao very much, so we discussed for one night. Before I knew it, a night had passed. Zhuowen said with a laugh. He would not say that he had spent the night in the same bed as the Saint Lady. Otherwise, the entire Demon Saint Palace would go crazy. Although the two of them were husband and wife, the people of the Demon Saint Palace did not know. Moreover, the Saint Lady had a great reputation in the Demon Saint Palace. If he said that, it would definitely cause a great uproar. Chapter 3570. What right do you have to be able to discuss the Tao with the Saintess for an entire night? She is a heaven-sent child, a direct disciple of the monster saint. She has only cultivated for a few thousand years and is already a second blight powerhouse. What qualifications do you have to discuss the Tao with the Saintess? I think you are just shameless enough to stay in the Saintess temple. You really have no sense of shame. The other three protectors were very jealous. The Great Protector coldly snorted and said, Protector Zhua, the Saintess temple is not a place where guest protectors like you can stay for long. If the monster saint finds out, you know the consequences. Zhuowen sneered and said, Great Protector, I will take care of my own business. You'd better not meddle. Every time the Great Protector spoke to him with sarcasm, Zhuowen had been unhappy for a long time. He just didn't want to care about it before. But that didn't mean that Zhuowen was a persimmon that could be bullied at will. Zhuowen, how dare you? You are just a trivial guest protector. How dare you speak to the Great Protector in such a tone? You have no concept of respect at all. How presumptuous. A middle-aged man standing next to the Great Protector stood up and scolded Zhuowen loudly. Zhuowen was no stranger to this middle-aged man. He was one of the 5 protectors, Protector Liu Yang. He was ranked 4th among the 5 protectors, and his cultivation was at the mid-stage of the 3rd blight. Among the 5 protectors, he was the closest to the Great Protector and was a loyal supporter of the Great Protector. Okay. The monster saint will be back soon. Let's be harmonious. The divine horn protector spoke. He rubbed his temples and looked at Zhuowen helplessly. He always felt that every time Zhuowen appeared, he would always mess things up. Couldn't Zhuowen be a little more tolerant? Thinking of this, the divine horn protector regretted inviting Zhuowen to be a guest protector of the monster saint palace. Okay, I will give the divine horn protector face and let it go for the time being, the great protector said coldly. At this moment, a vast and terrifying aura suddenly shot out from outside the monster saint heavenly city. This aura was too strong. Under this aura, the entire demon divine heavenly city was like a small beast shivering in fear, not worth mentioning. All the cultivators in the demon divine heavenly city raised their heads and looked into the distance. They saw a demonic light rapidly approaching. This is Lord Demon Saint's aura. Hurry up and welcome him. The great protector was pleasantly surprised. He hurriedly stopped everyone in the Demon Saint Palace and rushed to the entrance. Divine Horn Great Enforcer came to Zhuowen's side and sighed softly. Brother Zhuo, Great Enforcer has great influence in the Demon Saint Palace. Some things are best to endure, don't confront him directly. Divine Horn Guardian, I know what to do. Let's go and take a look. Zhuowen didn't give a direct answer, but instead walked towards the gate of the Demon Saint Palace. The godly Horn Guardian was a little annoyed by Zhuowen's attitude, but there was nothing he could do. His mood was very complicated. Very quickly, the bewitching light descended in front of the Demon Saint Palace, revealing a burly middle-aged man. This man wore a long black silk robe, and his entire body was filled with a mysterious demonic aura. The powerful demonic aura surging from him caused many of the cultivators in the area to tremble in fear. This man was the master of the Demon Saint Palace, Donghuang Tai. Greetings, Lord Demon Saint. The great protector led everyone in hurriedly to greet Donghuang Tai. Donghuang Tai nodded. Hongru, nothing happened while I was gone, right? The great protector thought of the Gold Silk sect and the Divine Peng sect, as well as Shu Yuan, who had lost her physical body. He hesitated for a moment. Lord Demon Saint, a few major events have indeed happened recently. Hongru will personally report to you in a moment. The great protector said respectfully. Millimeter, I'm not worried about you. Also, the banquet can begin at noon. Me breaking through to the fifth blight is a joyous occasion for the demon realm. Donghuang Tai laughed loudly, then entered the Demon Saint Palace, escorted by the great protector and the others. Zhuowen silently looked at Donghuang Tai's back. Donghuang Tai's cultivation had indeed reached the fifth blight, but compared to Daoist Three Purities and Wu Taiji, he was still lacking by quite a bit. After all, Three Purities and Wu Taiji had both broken through to the fifth blight a very long time ago, especially Three Purities. He had been at the peak of the fifth blight for a very long time, but later suffered heavy injuries, causing his cultivation to drop. However, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Three Purities was still the strongest person in the starry sky. Time gradually passed, and more people entered the Demon Saint Palace. Those who could enter the Demon Saint Palace were all representatives of the top factions in the demon realm. Zhuowen accompanied the God Horn Protector at the entrance, constantly greeting the representatives of the major factions. Hey, Protector Zhuo, I didn't think we'd meet again. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out. Zhuowen raised his head and saw an old woman greeting him with a smile. It's actually old ancestor Xian Ya of the Gold Silk sect. She's an early fourth blight expert, definitely one of the strongest in the demon realm. Who is this young man? He seems to be very familiar with old ancestor Xian Ya. Is he also a fourth blight expert? The surrounding people discussed animatedly as they looked at Zhuowen in surprise. At first, Zhuowen was too low-key and his aura was very calm, so he didn't attract anyone's attention. But when Xian Ya greeted him, he immediately became the center of attention. Zhuowen felt everyone's gaze and smiled bitterly. Just as he was about to greet Xian Ya, another familiar voice rang out and interrupted his greeting. Haha. Protector Zhuo, you're still a protector, why are you sitting at the entrance and greeting people? Demon Saint Palace isn't proper, is there no one else here? The voice was clear and tender and could be heard from far away. Zhuo Wen looked over and saw that it was a cultivator who looked like a child. He was slowly walking over with a group of people. This person wasn't unfamiliar to Zhuo Wen, it was old ancestor Heng Wu of the Divine Peng sect. Whether it was Heng Wu or Xian Ya, both of their auras were much more vigorous than before. Clearly, the pills Zhuo Wen gave them had allowed them to completely consolidate their realm, and their cultivation had improved slightly. Its old ancestor Heng Wu of the Divine Peng sect is also an early fourth blight expert. Just like old ancestor Xian Ya, he's one of the main experts at this banquet. This person actually knows old ancestor Heng Wu. Just who is this guy? The surrounding people were in an uproar as they discussed animatedly. Whether it was Heng Wu or Xian Ya, they stood at the top of the demon realm. They were usually elusive, so many people didn't have the chance to befriend them. Of course, even if someone did encounter them, they wouldn't have the qualifications to befriend them if they weren't strong enough. However, this unknown young man standing at the entrance actually knew both Xian Ya and Heng Wu at the same time, and from the looks of it, Xian Ya and Heng Wu seemed to hold this person in high regard, causing everyone to be even more curious about Zhuo Wen. Divine Horn Protector was even more stunned. Xian Ya and Heng Wu's cultivation was higher than his, and as old ancestors of their respective sects, their status was even higher than the head protector. Even Sir Demon Saint had to treat them with caution. Chapter 3571. After greeting Zhuo Wen warmly, Xian Ya and Heng Wu entered the Demon Saint Palace. Once they were far away, the Divine Horn Guardian asked, "Guardian Zhuo, what's going on? Are you acquainted with the patriarchs of the Golden Silk sect and Divine Peng sect?" "Yes. We are friends." Zhuo Wen nodded. In other words, after you went to the ruins of the Spirit Phoenix Trading Company, the patriarchs of the Golden Silk sect and Divine Peng sect temporarily withdrew from the Demon Saint Heavenly City because of you. The Divine Horn Guardian said in disbelief. When he heard that the Golden Silk sect and Divine Peng sect really withdrew from the Demon Saint Heavenly City, he was extremely shocked. He did not believe a single word Zhuo Wen said at that time. In his opinion, the Grand Guardian's edict was not that powerful to make the patriarchs of the Golden Silk sect and Divine Peng sect agree to withdraw. Now he knew that the reason the two sects withdrew was all because of this young man in front of him. "Ah, you can say that." Zhuo Wen was stunned. He did not expect the Divine Horn Guardian's imagination to be so wild. He could not possibly say that he defeated Xian Ya and Heng Wu and used his powerful strength to force them to withdraw from the Demon Saint Heavenly City. Even if he said that, the Divine Horn Guardian would not believe him. Soon, the representatives of the various factions in the Demon Saint Heavenly City had all entered the Demon Saint Palace. Zhuo Wen and the Divine Horn Guardian also finished their work and headed to the banquet. The Demon Saint Palace's banquet was held in the central plaza of the Demon Saint Palace. When Zhuo Wen and the Divine Horn Guardian arrived at the central plaza, they saw rows of exquisite tables arranged in the plaza. One by one, beautiful female cultivators with graceful figures came in with beautiful delicacies and placed them on the table in an orderly manner. At this moment, most of the seats in the plaza were occupied. The closer one's seat was to the front of the plaza, the more powerful the faction it belonged to. Among them, the upper echelons of the Demon Saint Palace sat at the table at the very front. They were on equal footing with the representatives of the true powers of the demon realm. In the middle of the square, there was a high platform with a beautiful seat on it. Everyone knew that the seat belonged to Donghuang Taiyi. However, Donghuang Taiyi had not appeared yet, so his seat was still empty. There was a smaller seat beside Donghuang Taiyi, and a beautiful woman with a veil over her face was sitting there. This woman was none other than the renowned holy maiden of the demon realm. Zhuo Wen glanced at the saintess on the high platform. The saintess seemed to have sensed something as well and looked at Zhuo Wen. Their eyes met, and both of them smiled knowingly. Zhuo Wen did not come forward to greet him. Instead, he followed the godly Horn Guardian to the front. The protectors of the Demon Saint Palace could be said to have a very high status in the Demon Saint Palace. Although Zhuo Wen was a guest protector, he was still considered a protector, so he was on equal footing with the 5 protectors. However, When the godly Horn Guardian and Zhuoan came to the front seat, there was only one seat left out of the original 6. In addition to the Great Guardian and the other 3 guardians, there was also a young man that Zhuoan did not know who occupied 5 of the seats. The young man's aura was not strong. He was only at the early stage of the first blight, and he was sitting in the seat that originally belonged to Zhuoan. The godly Horn Guardian naturally saw the young man. He transmitted a message to Zhuoan and told him that the young man was a nephew of the Great Guardian, named Sun Hong. Among the younger generation of the Demon Saint Palace, Sun Hong's talent was extremely high. He was a genius second only to the Saintess. Moreover, he also said that Sun Hong was also a fanatical pursuer of the Saintess. He had publicly said that the Saintess could only be his woman. "Oh, godly Horn Guardian, you're finally here. Come and sit down." The Great Guardian closed his eyes slightly and did not look at Zhuoan and the godly Horn Guardian at all. Instead, it was Liu Yang who greeted the godly Horn Guardian. Of course, whether it was intentional or not, Liu Yang did not look at Zhuoan at all. It was as if she was deliberately ignoring him. As for the young man who had occupied Zhuowen's seat, he looked at Zhuowen with a mocking gaze. The corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a subtle smile. The godly Horn Guardian frowned slightly and ignored Liu Yang's voice. Instead, he looked at the Great Guardian who was resting with his eyes closed and said, "Great Guardian, the 6 seats here are reserved for the Guardians. I'm afraid it's inappropriate for Sun Hong to sit here." The Great Guardian slowly opened his eyes and did not look at Zhuoan. Instead, he stared at the godly Horn Guardian and said, "Godly Horn, our Demon Saint Palace only has 5 guardians, but there are 6 seats here. In any case, there is an extra seat. Sun Hong's talent is good, and his temperament is even better. His future achievements will not be below mine. Isn't it just right for him to sit in the extra seat?" When the godly Horn Guardian wanted to say something, the Great Guardian waved his hand impatiently and said, "Hurry up and sit down. Sir Demon Saint will soon enter the arena. It's improper for you to keep standing here." The godly Horn Guardian felt the Great Guardian's cold and unfriendly gaze and felt his scalp tingle. He glanced at Zhuowen beside him and could only helplessly sit in the last seat. Zhuowen stood alone at the side. The Chief Protector and the others simply ignored Zhuowen. It was as if Zhuowen did not exist. "Guardian Zhuo, you don't seem to have a seat. How about you sit with me? My place is very spacious." Suddenly, a crisp voice rang out. There was a row of tables next to the 5 guardians. They were almost at the same level as the 5 guardians. The people sitting here were clearly big figures from the true big factions of the demon realm. The one who greeted Zhuowen was a child who looked like a porcelain doll. Don't look at the child's cute face. Many of the surrounding cultivators revealed looks of dread. This was because this child was the ancestor of the divine Peng sect, Heng Wu. It was said that he had broken through and reached the early stage of the 4th Heaven's Blight. With such cultivation, other than the Demon Saint Palace, no other faction in the demon realm could suppress him. On the other hand, Zhuowen looked very ordinary. Everyone was a little surprised that someone of Heng Wu's status would greet a cultivator who looked very ordinary so warmly. However, there were some astute people who faintly guessed that Zhuowen was not a simple person. Otherwise, it would be impossible for a 4th Heaven's Blight cultivator like Heng Wu to greet him so warmly without treating him as an outsider. "Guardian Zhuo, Heng Wu's seat is filled with stinky men. How about you come to my seat? My Hongwan's beauty is very famous in the demon realm." Just when everyone was surprised by how much Heng Wu valued Zhuowen, an old woman sitting in the same row as Heng Wu also opened her mouth and warmly greeted Zhuowen. Chapter 3572. Holy shit, that's Golden Silk Sect's ancestor Xian Ya, a 4th Blight expert. She's even more famous than Heng Wu. This guy actually knows an expert like Xian Ya. Who the hell is this guy? Heavens, Hong Wan is the goddess of my dreams. It seems like ancestor Xian Ya wants to matchmake this guy and Hong Wan. Isn't this like sticking a flower in cow dung? Many cultivators who once admired Hong Wan had their eyes turn red. Their gazes towards Zhuowen became extremely unfriendly. At the same time, Zhuowen felt an extremely cold gaze on his back, causing his hairs to stand on end. He secretly glanced at the saintess on the high platform. Although she maintained a smile, he could feel the chill in her eyes. The chief protector, who had been resting with his eyes closed, abruptly opened his eyes and looked at Zhuo Wen, Xian Ya, and Heng Wu in surprise. He didn't expect this Zhuowen to know Xian Ya and Heng Wu. Thinking back to how this kid easily made the Golden Silk Sect and Divine Peng Sect retreat from Demon Divine Heavenly City, the head enforcer's face turned ugly. He knew he had been played by this Zhuowen. At the same time, the head enforcer was also a little apprehensive. This kid knew Xian Ya and Heng Wu, so he wasn't a simple person. But the head enforcer wasn't particularly worried. This kid was only a guest enforcer of their Demon Divine Palace. He was the head enforcer. As the saying goes, a higher rank can crush people to death. This kid had no choice but to listen to his orders. Zhuowen smiled embarrassedly. Many thanks for fellow Daoist Heng Wu and fellow Daoist Xian Ya's kindness. There's a spot for me here, so I won't take up your spot. With that, Zhuowen looked at the provocative Sun Hong and said indifferently, Sun Hong, I'll give you 3 breaths of time. If you don't scram, I'll make you scram. Sun Hong was stunned. The head enforcer and the other elders were also stunned. No one expected Zhuowen to suddenly become so domineering. He actually dared to make Sun Hong scram. In terms of status, Sun Hong was indeed inferior to a guest enforcer like Zhuowen. But one had to know that Sun Hong's backer was the head enforcer. Zhuowen directly contradicting him was equivalent to contradicting the head enforcer. Sun Hong looked at the head enforcer and snorted, Zhuowen, there's no place for you here. The head enforcer made it clear that this spot is mine. When did it become yours? Know your place. Hurry up and scram to the back. There are plenty of seats there. Zhuowen looked at Sun Hong indifferently, causing the latter's scalp to go numb. However, Sun Hong still braced himself and said, What right do you have to tell me to scram? You are just a guest guardian. What right do you have to sit here? 3 breaths of time is up. If you don't scram, I'll make you scram. Zhuowen simply ignored Sun Hong. His right hand grabbed Sun Hong's collar and fiercely flung him out. The energy in Sun Hong's body surged as the power of the first decay erupted. He wanted to stop Zhuowen. But very quickly, he discovered that his power was completely frozen at this moment, and he couldn't move at all. He could only watch as Zhuowen grabbed his collar and threw him out like he was throwing trash. Bang! Sun Hong was thrown to an empty space outside the square by Zhuowen, creating a huge crater in the ground. In the entire square, many cultivators who were attending the banquet were stunned. They looked at Zhuowen in confusion. At this moment, Zhuowen became the focus of everyone's attention. Zhuowen's gaze was calm. Under everyone's gazes, he slowly walked to Sun Hong's seat and sat down. F***CK. This guy is really arrogant. Sun Hong is the nephew of the great enforcer, Sun Hongru. This guy threw Sun Hong out like trash. This is a slap to the great enforcer's face. I heard that this guy is called Zhuowen. He's a new guest enforcer of the Demon Saint Palace. He's just a guest enforcer, but he's so arrogant. He's definitely the most arrogant guest enforcer I've ever seen. The Divine Horn Enforcer, who was sitting in his seat, rubbed his temples. He smiled bitterly in his heart. He knew that Zhuowen had completely offended the Great Enforcer, and this would also implicate him. Thinking of this, the Divine Horn Enforcer quickly sent a message to Zhuowen. Enforcer Zhuowen, you're too impulsive. Now help Sun Hong up and give up your seat. Then apologize in person. I'll put in a good word for you in front of the Great Enforcer. Zhuowen didn't even look at the Divine Horn Enforcer. He had been disappointed in the latter for a long time. The Great Enforcer had stepped on Zhuowen's head, and he still wanted Zhuowen to endure it. Did he really think that the Great Enforcer could cover the sky with one hand? Should Zhuowen submit to the Great Enforcer? Divine Horn Enforcer, you're too cowardly. And now the Great Enforcer is pointing at my nose and embarrassing me. Why should I apologize to him? After replying, Zhuowen no longer paid attention to the Divine Horn Enforcer. Bang! At the same time, The great enforcer slammed his right hand on the table. He stood up and stared coldly at Zhuowen. Enforcer Zhuo, what do you mean by this? You dare to attack me in front of me? Are you looking down on me, the Great Protector? The Great Protector's voice was loud and clear. His voice was filled with coldness. At this moment, the whole square quieted down. The cultivators sitting far away also noticed the commotion. Xianye and Heng Wu looked at each other and smiled as if they were watching a good show. They were well aware of Zhuo Wen's strength. Back then, both of them had suffered a loss at the hands of Zhuo Wen. Moreover, this Great Protector's strength was at most similar to theirs. If he were to clash with Zhuo Wen head-on, he would probably be at a disadvantage. On the high platform, the Saintess suddenly stood up and said in a clear voice, "Great Enforcer. Today is the day of the banquet. Personal grievances should be left for after the banquet. Otherwise, it will be a joke to others." The Great Enforcer's eyes were gloomy. He cupped his hands and said, "Saintess, you saw it just now. This Zhuowen attacked first. He's already bullied me to the point of my nose. He's already offending his superior. If I don't teach him a lesson today, where will my dignity as the Great Enforcer go? Bending the law for personal gain, forming cliques, and being jealous of talent. What dignity does a Great Enforcer like you have?" Zhuowen sneered. "Impudent! How dare you speak to me like this? If I don't punish you today, I will have wasted my years as the Great Enforcer of the Demon Saint Palace. Today, you and I will fight in the life and death arena. I will personally clean up the house," the Great Enforcer said gloomily. "What? The life and death arena? Isn't the Great Enforcer going too far? Once on the life and death arena, there will be a battle of life and death. With the Great Enforcer's cultivation, this guest enforcer won't die for sure." The crowd was in an uproar. They felt that the Great Enforcer had gone too far, but no one came out to refute. After all, the Great Enforcer was a senior executive in the Demon Saint Palace. Apart from the Demon Saint, no one had more seniority than him. Even the Saintess had no right to interfere. Chapter 3573. The moment Zhuowen agreed to the Great Guardian's request, the surrounding area fell silent. Originally, everyone thought that Zhuowen would definitely find all kinds of reasons and excuses to refuse and not agree to the Great Guardian's request for a life and death battle. But now, Zhuowen had agreed so readily. Many people did not expect this and fell into silence. The Great Guardian was also startled. He was also a little surprised. He had not expected Zhuowen to agree so readily. As for the Saintess on the high platform, when she saw Zhuowen agree so readily, her beautiful eyes revealed a look of worry. She had made up her mind that once Zhuowen showed signs of being defeated on the life and death arena, she would immediately take action. Although her cultivation was only at the second blight and she was no match for the Great Guardian, she knew that even if she took action, the Great Guardian would not really kill her. After all, she was the Saintess of the Demon Saint Palace and was the person that the Demon Saint valued the most. Humph. The banquet is about to begin. After the banquet is over, the life and death battle will begin. You should cherish the time you have left. The Great Guardian looked at the sky and said indifferently. In his eyes, Zhuowen was already a dead man. Zhuowen's eyes were indifferent as he said, "The time before the banquet begins is enough for me to get rid of you on the life and death arena. Let's go to the life and death arena now." When Zhuowen's words came out, everyone was in an uproar. No one expected that Zhuowen would be in such a hurry to go to the life and death arena. Wasn't he in a hurry to court death? The Great Guardian was startled and immediately grinned. "It seems that you are in a hurry to reincarnate. In that case, I will fulfill your wish. The life and death arena is not far from here. Follow me." With that, the Great Guardian stood up and walked to the east side of the central square. Zhuowen remained silent. He slowly stood up and followed closely behind the first protector. The other protectors followed closely behind him as well. The Divine Horn Guardian sighed and shook his head secretly. He knew that Zhuowen was too impulsive. He actually agreed to a life and death duel with the Great Guardian. He was overestimating himself. He knew that Zhuoan was at the third heaven's blight, but the head law enforcer was at the fourth heaven's blight. There was a difference of a large realm between them. No matter how heaven-defying this child was, he couldn't be the head law enforcer's match. I'm starting to regret recruiting him into the Demon Saint Palace, the God Horn Protector muttered to himself. Because of what Zhuoan had done, the Great Protector would have even more reasons to mess with him. Zhuoan's death was one thing, but it had also harmed him. Thinking of this, the godly Horn Guardian could not help but blame Zhuoan. As for Sun Hong, he had already been helped up. His injuries were very serious, especially the meridians in his body that had been destroyed by a strange power. If he wanted to completely recover, he had no idea how much time and materials he would need. Take me there. I want to see this Zhuoan being killed by the Great Protector with my own eyes. Sun Hong's eyes were red, and he roared as if he had lost his mind. The life and death ring was indeed not far from the central square. After walking out of the square, it took about a few minutes to reach it. The life and death ring was very large, and it was surrounded by extremely powerful restrictions. Generally, the disciples of the Demon Saint Palace would come to the life and death ring for a fight to the death when they wanted to use force to resolve a conflict. On the life and death ring, it would only end when one side died. Otherwise, they would have to keep fighting. This was the rule of the life and death ring. The Great Protector removed the restrictions around the life and death ring and jumped onto the life and death ring. His body was as straight as a spear as he looked down at Zhuoan and said, "Zhuoan, why aren't you coming up to die?" Zhuoan walked up the stairs of the life and death ring step by step and finally stopped in front of the Great Protector. Whoosh! The instant the two stood on the life and death ring, the Great Protector threw out the formation flag in his hand. Instantly, the restrictions around the life and death ring rippled violently. Then, the restrictions closed again. The Holy Maiden stood at the edge of the life and death ring and looked at the closed restrictions. Her pretty face changed slightly, and she said to the Great Protector in a deep voice, "Great Protector, the life and death ring's restrictions are not allowed to close during the life and death battle. You're violating the rules." The Great Protector was indifferent and said indifferently, "Holy Maiden is worrying too much. Usually, the life and death battles are basically the disciples of the palace. Those are all small fights, and the battle ripples produced are not very strong. But Protector Zhuo and I are different. At the same time, the energy ripples transmitted from a battle between half-step breaking heaven realm powerhouses are extremely terrifying. The life and death ring might not be able to withstand it. This restriction is also for the sake of precaution, to prevent the energy from shooting out violently and injuring the spectators." The Holy Maiden frowned slightly, and her beautiful eyes looked at Zhuoan, revealing a worried expression. She knew the reason why the Great Protector did this. This was to prevent her from interfering in the life and death battle. However, after seeing Zhuoan's indifferent expression, she was slightly relieved. Zhuoan was her husband after all. She understood Zhuoan very well and knew that Zhuoan would never casually do something that he was not confident in. Since Zhuoan agreed to the life and death battle so readily, he probably had a certain chance of winning. Even if he really was not the Great Protector's match, Zhuoan should also have a corresponding escape method. This Zhuoan is really overestimating his abilities. Not only does he dare to provoke the Great Protector, he even publicly wants to have a life and death battle with the Great Protector. If this isn't courting death, what is? Protector Liu Yang crossed her arms over her chest and said with a sneer. Around the life and death ring, many onlookers also looked at the two people on the life and death ring calmly. They also felt that this Zhuoan was too impulsive. One had to know that there were not many fourth blight powerhouses in the monster domain. The Great Protector was at the early stage of the fourth blight and was definitely one of the top powerhouses in the monster domain. Although they couldn't see through this Zhuoan's specific cultivation, this person could only be a guest protector of the Monster Saint Palace. Obviously, his strength was very ordinary. Such a person challenging the Great Protector was no different from courting death. Sun Hong, who was supported by his subordinates, glared fiercely at Zhuoan on the life and death ring. He was imagining the scene of Zhuoan being instantly killed by the Great Protector. Below the ring, except for the cultivators of Golden Silk Sect and Divine Peng Sect, no one was optimistic about Zhuowen. He. The Great Protector is in big trouble. He actually dared to provoke little brother Zhuo. Hung Wu crossed his arms and grinned as he muttered in a low voice. Back then, because he underestimated Zhuowen, he was beaten half to death by Zhuowen. If it weren't for Zhuowen showing mercy, he would have already died. Xian Yue looked at the Great Protector with a pitiful look. She knew very well that the Great Protector's fate might be even more miserable than Heng Wu's. You seem to be very calm. In fact, I'm also very curious. Where did you get the confidence to agree to a life-and-death battle with me? The Great Protector stood opposite of Zhuowen and was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he asked indifferently. I should say, where did you get the confidence to have a life-and-death battle with me? Zhuowen responded indifferently. Chapter 3574. The Great Protector is about to make his move. Everyone in the audience also felt the terrifying aura coming from the Great Protector's body. They all cheered up and looked at the two people on the stage with excitement, looking forward to the next battle. Haha. This Zhuowen should be killed in seconds. Protector Liu Yang crossed her arms and sneered disdainfully. The Saintess was anxious. Although she believed that Zhuowen would have a backup plan, she still couldn't help but worry. After all, the Great Protector's cultivation was much higher than Zhuowen's, so it was inevitable that something unexpected would happen. Bang! At this moment, the Great Protector on the stage had already attacked. He shot out like an arrow and arrived in front of Zhuowen in the blink of an eye. A terrifying aura as vast as the ocean spread out in all directions, and then like a hurricane, it crushed Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen stood in place, motionless. The storm formed by the endless pressure swept over his body, blowing his long hair and fluttering his clothes. He was like a long spear, standing in the wind, majestic and unyielding. When the Great Protector's attack was almost within reach, a mysterious and vast purple light suddenly burst out from Zhuowen's body. The purple light swept out like a storm, as if purple stars were bursting out. Zhuowen's aura also rose at this moment, and in an instant, it suppressed the Great Protector's vast aura. At the same time, Zhuowen had already thrown out a punch, and a purple light soared into the sky, as if it was going to pierce through the sky. Bang bang bang! In an instant, the two fists collided, and a series of muffled thunder-like sounds rang out. It was continuous, as if it was endless. Deng deng deng! The Great Protector let out a muffled groan and retreated a few steps. He steadied himself and stared at Zhuowen, who stood as still as a spear. At this moment, Zhuowen's whole body was exuding a purple light. Even his black hair turned into an illusory purple under the purple light. You are only at the early stage of the third blight. How can you have such a powerful aura and power? Chief Enforcer was shocked. He stared at the young man in front of him in disbelief. When Zhuowen attacked, he did notice that Zhuowen was only at the early stage of the third blight, but whether it was aura or power, Zhuowen was above him. This was too unbelievable. Was this really an early stage third blight cultivator? This was too heaven-defying. Countless people below the stage were also taken aback. They were all in a mess. Early stage fourth blight and early stage third blight were an entire major realm apart. Originally, early stage fourth blight cultivators should completely crush early stage third blight cultivators. But now, this advantage was completely reversed. Instead, the early stage of the third blight had the upper hand. Was this world crazy? Protector Liu Yang, who was watching the show with her arms crossed, couldn't help glaring at Yang Kai. Sun Hong, whose eyes were filled with malevolence, was completely dumbfounded. The Holy Maiden, who was originally worried, let out a sigh of relief. She was a little surprised that Zhuowen was so strong. At the same time, she blamed this guy for not telling her the truth last night. Great Guardian, have you not eaten? A dignified fourth blight cultivator only has this much strength. This is too weak. Just when everyone, including the Great Protector, was stunned, Zhuowen opened his mouth. What he said made everyone feel dizzy. This guy was too cocky. You're courting death. Just now, I didn't use my full strength, allowing your sneak attack to succeed. Now, you won't be so lucky. This old master will use his full strength and kill you in one move." The Great Guardian was furious. He took a step forward and attacked with all his strength. It had to be said that the Great Guardian was indeed strong. At least, he was stronger than Heng Wu. Obviously, the Great Guardian was not far from the middle stage of the fourth blight. Peng peng peng. In just an instant, the two fought again. In the blink of an eye, they had already exchanged dozens of moves. The aftermath of the battle between the two was too terrifying. The surrounding barriers trembled violently as if they would collapse at any moment. Zhuowen threw a punch. Purple light filled the sky and instantly, the Great Guardian was forced to retreat. At the same time, Zhuowen took out a golden claw. It was the golden-winged rock claw. He had obtained it from Heng Wu. The golden-winged rock claw's power was comparable to a half-step heaven-breaking divine artifact. The Great Guardian clearly didn't expect Zhuowen to suddenly use the golden-winged rock claw. Zhuowen grabbed empty air, and the golden claw blasted into his abdomen, penetrating it and annihilating it. Poochie. The Great Guardian spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. He looked at the golden claw in Zhuowen's hand in horror. The blood on it was all his. The Great Guardian's face was pale. "This is the golden-winged rock claw of the God Peng sect. How did you get it?" "Naturally, it was given to me by the God Peng sect's old ancestor, Heng Wu. Our relationship is very good. In order to prevent me from being bullied, he gave it to me," Zhuowen said casually. At the same time, he was shocked at the power of the golden-winged rock claw. It could actually injure an early-stage fourth blight expert like the Great Guardian. After Zhuowen finished speaking, everyone's gazes simultaneously fell onto Heng Wu, who was below the stage. Heng Wu's face turned red. He couldn't say that he had been beaten up by Zhuowen and that the golden-winged rock claw had been stolen by him. Cough cough. This golden-winged rock claw was indeed given to Great Guardian Zhuo by me. Great Guardian Zhuo and I are like brothers, so I naturally can't mistreat him. Therefore, I gave him this golden-winged rock claw to protect himself. Heng Wu's expression was calm, but his heart was pained. This golden-winged rock claw was the strongest divine artifact passed down by the God Peng sect's ancestors. He was originally going to shamelessly ask Zhuowen for it after the banquet ended. But now that Zhuowen had said so, no matter how thick his face was, he wouldn't ask for it from Zhuowen. Zhuowen floated in midair and once again used the golden-winged rock claw to smash towards the Chief Guardian. At the same time, Zhuowen suddenly flashed out and descended before the Chief Guardian like a bolt of lightning. Bang bang bang! With Zhuowen's golden-winged rock claw, the Great Guardian was not a match at all. He was in a state of being beaten up. Everyone below the stage was dumbfounded. Didn't the Great Guardian say that he would use his full strength to kill Zhuowen in one move? What was the situation now? Zhuowen wasn't killed and he was about to be killed. Poochie. The Great Guardian spat out another mouthful of blood and retreated. His body was already dripping with blood and his aura was weak. He had suffered a very serious injury. "Zhuowen, I want you to die." The Great Guardian roared angrily and his aura surged instantly. He actually burned his essence blood and was going to fight Zhuowen to the death. Zhuowen sneered and used the Torch Dragon's eye to find the Great Guardian's weakness. Then, he summoned his clone and merged with his original body. His aura surged instantly. Zhuowen attacked again and clashed head-on with the Great Guardian, who was burning his essence blood. Then, the Great Guardian's body burst into a bloody mist and he fell from the sky in a sorry state. He was extremely dispirited. Your aura has become stronger again. What's your cultivation level?" The Great Guardian crawled up with difficulty and knelt on the ground. He raised his head and looked at Zhuowen, who was walking towards him slowly. He ignored the blood in his mouth and asked in disbelief. Chapter 3575. At this moment, the entire arena was silent as everyone's eyes involuntarily fell on the life or death ring and the figure standing straight up like a javelin. The great protector of Monster Saint Palace, who held the highest authority in Monster Saint Palace, was lifted up like a dead dog by this person's hand, unable to resist at all. This contrast was so great that it made everyone feel like they were being tossed in the wind. This great protector, he actually lost. Protector Liu Yang, who had her arms crossed in front of her chest and was full of confidence, almost bit her tongue when she saw this scene, her eyes bulging. Sun Hong's legs went soft, and if it weren't for the people around him supporting him, he would have already fallen to his knees. The Saintess let out a sigh of relief and gave Zhuowen a slightly reproachful look. This guy's strength is so great, why didn't he tell me last night? However, seeing that Zhuowen was safe and sound and had even defeated the Great Protector, the Saintess felt very happy and proud for Zhuowen. Hung Wu, Xian Ya, and the others all showed knowing expressions. After all, they had personally witnessed Zhuowen's strength and had not been optimistic about the Great Protector's chances from the beginning. Protector Zhuo, don't kill me, I am the Great Protector of Monster Saint Palace. If you kill me, you will offend the entire Monster Saint Palace. The Great Protector weakly begged for mercy as he finally felt fear in his heart. You and I have both stepped onto the life or death ring. If I don't kill you, how can I end this life or death battle? Zhuowen taunted. The Great Protector felt the murderous intent in Zhuowen's eyes and shuddered, the fear in his heart reaching an extreme. He knew that this young man in front of him really wanted to kill him. Pucci. Zhuowen's right hand surged with a terrifying shattering divine force and poured it into the Great Protector's body through his neck. In an instant, the Great Protector's entire body exploded into a bloody mist. Peng. However, after this bloody mist exploded, it immediately floated away and reformed into the Great Protector's figure. However, the Great Protector's face was extremely pale and his breathing was rapid. The aura on his body was extremely weak. A fourth Blight Cultivator's life force was even more terrifying than a third Blight Cultivator. Back then, Zhuowen had to spend a lot of effort to kill a third Blight Cultivator, so this fourth Blight Cultivator was naturally not so easy to kill. However, Zhuowen's shattering divine force, the Great Protector was extremely uncomfortable and was struggling to resist the shattering divine force in his body. The Great Guardian didn't dare to stay on the life and death platform for too long. He waved an array flag and tried to undo the array formation restriction around the life and death platform. Su. The array flag shot out, and the powerful array restriction around the life and death ring immediately disappeared. The head protector quickly rushed out. However, when the protector arrived at the edge of the life and death arena, a powerful ripple of formations suddenly extended over. Afterwards, the protector was directly repelled by the ripple. He spat out a mouthful of blood and became even more dispirited and dispirited. The Great Protector looked at the Great Protector in disbelief. This is a trap formation? And it's a half-step heaven breaker formation. Why is there a trap formation on the life and death stage? Immediately after, the Great Guardian heard the crisp sound of footsteps. He abruptly turned around and saw Zhuowen leisurely walking over with a mocking smile on his face. You set up this trap formation? You're also a half-step heaven breaker formation master? The Great Protector thought of a possibility and said in disbelief. Zhuowen did not answer. Instead, he took out his golden rock claw and attacked the Great Protector again. This trap formation was indeed set up by Zhuowen. He knew very well that the formation around the life and death stage was controlled by the Great Protector. If the Great Protector saw that the situation was bad and ran away, it was very likely that he would use the formation around the life and death stage to stop him. Therefore, just in case, Zhuowen secretly had his doppelganger set up a top-level trapping formation in the Great World. Then, when his doppelganger merged with his true body, he set up the trapping formation at the edge of the life and death ring. However, he did not expect that it would come in handy now. Splat! The Great Protector was pierced through by the golden rock claw again, and his entire body collapsed again. His strength had dropped too much, and he was no match for Zhuowen at all. If this continued, he would eventually be exhausted to death by Zhuowen. Meanwhile, the countless people below the stage were all stunned when they saw the Great Protector being beaten to the point of collapse again and again. They had never seen the Great Protector in such a sorry state before. In the past, The Great Protector had always been majestic and lofty. However, now, he was being beaten to such a state by a cultivator who was a major cultivation stage lower than him. It was simply too tragic. When the Great Protector's body collapsed again under the golden rock claw, his body showed no signs of reforming. He had already been exhausted to the point where he could no longer reform his body. A ball of light shot out from the Great Protector's collapsed body, and then it quickly fled out of the life and death stage. Zhuowen knew that it was the Great Protector's soul, but he was not in a hurry. He had set up a trap array around the life and death stage, so where could the Great Protector escape to? In the end, he could only wander around the life and death stage. However, soon, Zhuowen's expression changed slightly because he felt a vast and boundless aura surging out from the depths of the Demon Saint Palace. Then, in the sky above the life and death stage, a huge 9-story pagoda fell and smashed into the trap array on the life and death stage. Crack, crack, crack. The trap array trembled violently and made a strange sound that made one's hair stand on end. Then, a crack appeared at the top of the trap array. The Great Protector's soul, which was originally wandering around the edge of the trap array, quickly flew over and entered the 9-story pagoda. After the Great Protector's soul was taken away, the 9-story pagoda did not continue to attack the trap array. Instead, it flew back into the sky with a whoosh and gradually became smaller, finally falling into a palm. Zhuowen stood in the dimly lit entrapment array. He raised his head and looked at the black-robed middle-aged man in the sky with narrowed eyes. Countless cultivators below the stage also noticed the scene just now. They looked up at the sky and exclaimed one after another. "Lord Demon Saint has come out. That was a 9-story pagoda just now, right? Its power is really terrifying." Just one hit and it blasted a hole in a half-step heaven breaker trap array. As expected of the Demon Saint's most powerful divine artifact. Now that Lord Demon Saint has appeared, it seems like the Great Protector's life is saved. I wonder how the Demon Saint will deal with Zhuowen. After all, he almost killed the Great Protector. It shouldn't be. After all, Zhuowen and the Great Protector were fighting head-on. Both sides were willing, so it's inevitable that there would be casualties in a battle. The crowd was in an uproar. Everyone subconsciously looked at Zhuowen on the stage, their eyes full of pity. They knew that if the Demon Saint really blamed him, this child would not be able to bear the consequences. The Saintess also had a worried expression on her face. She gritted her teeth and made up her mind. If the Demon Saint really blamed Zhuowen, she must protect Zhuowen. Although Zhuowen was very powerful and even the Great Protector was no match for him, the Demon Saint was different. The Demon Saint was a big shot who had survived from ancient times until now and had just broken through to the 5th blight. His strength was not something the Great Protector could compare to. Chapter 3576. Hung Wu and Xian Yai's expressions turned solemn, their eyes filled with dread. The two of them could be considered to be at the top of the demon realm. However, they knew that in front of the Beast Overlord, their cultivation was still insufficient. Even if they thought highly of Zhuowen, they didn't think that Zhuowen would be a match for the Beast Overlord. Below the stage, many cultivators showed a fanatical look of worship when they saw the Beast Overlord. Donghuang Taiyi held the 9-story pagoda in his right hand. Then, a ball of light appeared at the bottom of the pagoda. Inside the ball of light was a small figure with the face of the Great Guardian, Sun Hongru. It was the Great Guardian's soul. At this moment, the Great Guardian's soul floated above Donghuang Taiyi's palm and complained, "Lord Beast Overlord, you must uphold justice for me. This Zhuowen is our Beast Overlord Palace's new guest guardian. I've treated him well, but he repaid my kindness with ingratitude and used underhanded means to harm me. He almost killed me. Lord Beast Overlord, this kind of ungrateful person must not be allowed to live. He must be executed on the spot." Donghuang Taiyi glanced at the Great Guardian's soul, then his gaze fell on Zhuowen on the arena of life and death. "Do you admit to your crimes?" Zhuowen raised his head and mocked, "What crimes have I committed? For the sake of his own selfishness, this old bastard targeted me in every way, and he didn't even hesitate to kill me. He was the one who proposed this deathmatch, wasn't it, to get rid of me? What he didn't expect was that my strength exceeded his expectations, and in the end, he fell into my hand. I lost on the arena of life and death, so it was only right for me to kill him. Instead, you interfered. Do you admit to your crimes? Zhuoan looked directly at Donghuang Taiyi, his voice loud and clear, so loud that even the deaf could hear it. F***CK. This guy has guts. He dares to retort in front of Lord Beast Overlord and even asks if Lord Beast Overlord knows his crimes. Is this guy tired of living? Did this guy's confidence inflate too much after defeating the Great Guardian? Does he think he's invincible? How dare he question Lord Beast Overlord? Is he courting death? Almost everyone below the stage was stunned. They were shocked to the extreme by Zhuoan's words. The demonic beast saint was the highest ruler of the demonic beast domain and also the strongest. He had absolute authority in the demonic beast domain. For many years, no one dared to question the demonic beast saint face to face. But now, someone had really done such a thing. Moreover, he had even questioned the demon saint. How bold of him! Hung Wu and Xian Yue glanced at each other, their minds in a mess. They knew that this Zhuoan was indeed extremely daring, but they still found that they had greatly underestimated this guy. This guy's guts were even bigger than the heavens, questioning Donghuang Taiyi in public. How big of a heart was this? Donghuang Taiyi frowned slightly. Now that he was here personally, this lad actually dared to refute him and even question him. This was the first time he was questioned in front of his face ever since he became a demon overlord. The Great Guardian is indeed in the wrong, but he doesn't deserve death. Your killing intent is too strong, and your entire body is filled with killing intent. How about this? You come with me to the demonic beast temple and reflect on your mistakes for 100 years. If you can repent, I will set you free. Donghuang Taiyi's voice was indifferent, but it carried an unquestionable meaning. The saintess' expression changed slightly. Just as she was about to plead for mercy, Zhuoan spoke again. You want me to go to the demonic beast temple? That depends on whether you have the ability to make me go to the demonic beast temple. As soon as these words came out, everyone's forehead was full of black lines. They had seen arrogant people before, but they had never seen such an arrogant person. The demonic beast saint was a dignified 5th blight expert. You're at most a 4th blight expert. In front of the demonic beast saint, you're completely lacking. You actually dare to question the demonic beast saint's ability. The demonic beast saint was also stunned. This was the first time he had seen such an arrogant person. He felt a little embarrassed and planned to suppress him. In that case, I have nothing else to say to you. Today, you will go even if you don't want to. After the demonic beast saint finished speaking, he held the 9-story pagoda in his right hand and suddenly pressed down with his left hand. Suddenly, the wind and clouds in the sky changed. As the demonic beast saint pressed down with his hand, a terrifying energy formed an earth-shattering giant palm that quickly pressed down on Zhuoan, who was on the life and death platform below. At this moment, all the cultivators below the life and death platform retreated in fear. This was the demonic beast saint. The power of this attack was too terrifying. If they were accidentally affected, they would definitely suffer a great loss. At the same time, they had already regarded Zhuoan as a dead man in their hearts. They didn't think that Zhuoan could survive under the demonic beast saint's suppression. The saintess didn't retreat, but instead rushed forward and rushed to the life and death platform. Now, her heart was in a mess. She never thought that things would develop to this point. Even the demonic beast saint had to deal with Zhuoan. Zhuoan stood quietly on the life and death platform. The moment the demonic beast saint attacked, a ray of light erupted from between his eyebrows. This ray of light was too blazing. It was like the essence of the sun, containing boundless power. Then, this ray of light instantly left between Zhuoan's eyebrows and suddenly soared into the sky. Only then did everyone see that the shape of this ray of light was actually an extremely huge light sword. Moreover, this light sword had an extremely terrifying sword intent that spread in all directions. It was extremely terrifying. Boom! The moment the palm fell from the sky and collided with the light sword, terrifying energy ripples burst out. However, the palm was quickly destroyed by the light sword. The light sword soared into the sky and landed on Donghuang Taiyi's body. No one noticed that the moment Donghuang Taiyi was hit by the light sword, his body stiffened for a moment, as if he was a corpse. At the same time, Zhuowen moved. He took a step into the sky and quickly approached Donghuang Taiyi. Then, he reached out his right hand and grabbed the soul of the great guardian that was floating above Donghuang Taiyi. Then, Zhuowen quickly retreated and landed on the life and death platform. What? This guy broke the Beast Overlord's attack and even took the great guardian's soul from the Beast Overlord. How is this guy going to get there? Countless cultivators who were originally watching a good show were petrified when they saw the scene just now. Even the saintess who rushed over stopped in place and stared blankly at the scene. She had yet to react to what had just happened. At this moment, Zhuowen was holding the great guardian's soul. His face was pale and cold sweat covered his forehead. He raised his head and looked at Donghuang Taiyi in the sky. He frowned and muttered in a low voice, although Donghuang Taiyi's cultivation is only at the early stage of the fifth decay, his soul has already reached the peak of the fifth decay. So powerful. My divine soul sword intent is already terrifying enough, but it only lightly injured his divine soul. At that moment, Zhuowen had indeed used one of his trump cards, the soul sword intent. Zhuowen's soul was extremely powerful, far exceeding his cultivation. It had already reached the peak of the fifth decay. The soul sword intent formed by it was enough to pose a threat to fifth decay cultivators. Chapter 3577. Although Zhuowen's soul sword intent didn't seriously injure Donghuang Taiyi, it at least caused some hindrance. Otherwise, Zhuowen wouldn't have been able to snatch the great guardian's soul from Donghuang Taiyi so easily. Moreover, Zhuowen could clearly see that Donghuang Taiyi's body was still very stiff at this moment. Apparently, he was still resisting his soul sword intent. However, the aura around Donghuang Taiyi suddenly erupted at that moment, dissipating into the sky, forming dazzling energy ripples as if it had gone berserk. After a long time, the violent energy around Donghuang Taiyi gradually converged, and Donghuang Taiyi's gaze fell on Zhuowen again. After a moment of silence, he said in a deep voice, "Your cultivation isn't at the third blight." At this moment, Donghuang Taiyi's heart was very unsettled. The moment Zhuowen's soul sword intent blasted into his soul, it set off a terrifying tearing storm inside his soul world. The terrifying sword intent rampaged in his soul world, constantly destroying his soul power. If it weren't for his soul being far stronger than his cultivation, he felt that his soul would very likely be completely destroyed by this soul sword intent. At least he knew that if an ordinary fifth blight cultivator was hit by this soul sword intent, they would at least be seriously injured or even die. At this moment, Donghuang Taiyi didn't dare to underestimate Zhuowen. He stared at Zhuowen, suspecting that the latter might be a fifth blight cultivator who hid his cultivation. Otherwise, how could he have such a powerful soul attack? What do you think? Zhuowen's eyes were vigilant, and he didn't answer directly. He made up his mind that if Donghuang Taiyi continued to attack, he would use the 9 Tribulation Divine Sword to kill Donghuang Taiyi even if he had to expose the secret of the heaven-breaking divine weapon. Although he still had 2 soul sword intents in his soul world, he knew very well that soul attacks had to be unexpected, especially when Donghuang Taiyi's soul power might not be as strong as his, but it wasn't far off. Once Donghuang Taiyi was on guard, his divine soul attack would not have any effect on him. Lord Demon Overlord, this Zhuowen is really too arrogant. He actually dares to act so unbridled in front of you. You must take action and kill him completely. The soul of the Great Protector trembled in Zhuowen's palm. He hurriedly suggested to Donghuang Taiyi to kill Zhuowen. Otherwise, the Great Protector's fate would be miserable. Noisy. Zhuowen coldly harumphed. He clenched his right fist and crushed the Chief Enforcer's divine soul. The Chief Enforcer's divine soul let out a miserable shriek and collapsed. No one had expected Zhuowen to not only snatch someone from Donghuang Taiyi, but also kill someone in front of Donghuang Taiyi. How big of a heart did he have to actually dare to do such a rebellious and arrogant act? However, what shocked everyone even more was that Dong Huangtai did not have a big reaction. Instead, he remained silent. Just when everyone thought that Dong Huangtai would be enraged and kill Zhuowen again, Dong Huangtai spoke. The chief enforcer's actions are indeed too much. Even if this fellow Daoist did not do it, I would have cleaned up the sec. However, the chief enforcer is an important position in my demon overlord palace. Now that Sun Hongru has fallen, there must be a new successor. Fellow Daoist, you are my demon overlord palace's guest enforcer, and your strength is extraordinary. You should be the new chief enforcer. Dong Huangtai's words had just left his mouth when the crowd was in an uproar. Everyone looked at Dong Huangtai in disbelief. No one had expected that not only did Dong Huangtai not punish Zhuowen, he even promoted him. The divine horn enforcer below the stage was in a daze. The corner of his mouth was full of bitterness. After the chief enforcer was killed by Zhuowen, his heart was filled with ecstasy. He knew that the chief enforcer was no longer around, and he was the most favorable candidate. If nothing unexpected happened, he would be the only candidate for the chief enforcer. But now, not only did Dong Huangtai not blame Zhuowen, he even made Zhuowen the new chief enforcer. The divine horn enforcer was unwilling and helpless. He knew that he no longer had the chance to become the new chief enforcer. Among the people present, only Heng Wu and Xian Yue saw the clues. Their point of view was completely different from the others. Just now, Zhuo Wen and Dong Huangtai had only fought for a short time. It seemed like Zhuo Wen was at a disadvantage, but the two of them could clearly sense that Dong Huangtai might have been injured by the light sword. Thinking of this, the two felt that it was inconceivable, but also reasonable. If Dong Huangtai was unharmed, he would have suppressed Zhuowen directly to show his majesty as a demon overlord. But Dong Huangtai did not do that. Instead, he comforted Zhuowen. In the eyes of outsiders, this action was to forgive Zhuowen and give Zhuowen a chance. But in the eyes of Heng Wu and Xian Yue, it was a sign that Dong Huangtai was afraid of Zhuowen. Just how strong is this Zhuowen? Heng Wu and Xian Yue looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. This person could make Dong Huangtai give in. Just how strong is he? Is he also a fifth blight powerhouse? When everyone thought that Zhuowen would accept the position of chief enforcer, Zhuowen only said indifferently, "Demon Overlord, I might have to disappoint you. I'm not interested in the position of chief enforcer. I fought with Sun Hongru to the death not because I coveted his position, but because he was too greedy. If chief enforcer really needs a successor, I'll recommend him to divine horn enforcer. In Demon Overlord Palace, no one is more qualified than him to become chief enforcer." The moment Zhuowen refused, the people below the stage felt dizzy. This guy was simply too pretentious. Demon Overlord personally invited him to become chief enforcer and he actually refused. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Dong Huangtai was also startled. He looked at Divine Horn Enforcer and said, "Since that's the case, I won't force you. I'll let Divine Horn succeed the position of chief enforcer for the time being. Also, after this banquet, come to my Demon Overlord Palace. I have something to ask you." "No problem." Zhuowen did not refuse. Dong Huangtai nodded and no longer paid attention to Zhuowen. He had everyone return to the square and the banquet began. The banquet was very lively. There was no unhappy atmosphere because of Sun Hongru's death. Many representatives stood up and congratulated Dong Huangtai for successfully advancing to the fifth blight. In addition, Zhuowen's seat was also very lively. Many representatives raised their cups and came to curry favor with Zhuowen. In the battle just now, many people could see that Zhuowen was not simple. After all, someone who could kill the Great Elder was not an ordinary person. Zhuo Wen, on the other hand, was sitting calmly in his seat. Anyone who came to get close to him was basically blocked by the Divine Horn Guardians. Since Zhuowen gave up the position of Chief Enforcer to Divine Horn Enforcer was very grateful to Zhuowen and respected him like a god. He knew that Zhuowen did not like to be disturbed, so he blocked most of the people who came to curry favor with him. Protector Liu Yang and Sun Hong knelt not far from Zhuowen, uneasy and pale. Chapter 3578. To Zhuowen, Sun Hong and Protector Liu Yang were just small fries. Although the two of them had targeted him before, he really couldn't be bothered to deal with them. Of course, Zhuowen didn't object to the two of them coming over to kneel and admit their mistakes. As for how long they had to kneel, Zhuowen didn't interfere. Actually, Zhuowen had also not taken the head protector seriously back then. However, the head protector was truly too arrogant and had even tried to kill Zhuowen. As such, Zhuowen could not be blamed for specifically dealing with the head protector. Protector Zhuo. Eastern Emperor Taiyi's Beast Temple is filled with many powerful spirit arrays and barriers. It is Eastern Emperor Taiyi's lair, so I think it's best if you don't take any risk. During the banquet, Heng Wu and Xian Yue both sent him messages, advising him not to enter Beast Temple rashly in case the Beast Saint tried to harm him. Zhuowen reassured the two of them that he had his own decisions to make. Zhuowen looked at the high platform and saw the Saintess sitting next to Eastern Emperor Taiyi, his eyes flashing. He knew that he was going to Beast Temple this time to have a good talk with the Beast Saint about Mu Chunxue. He knew very well that the Beast Saint had just broken through to the early fifth blight and had yet to fully consolidate his realm. What he needed the most now was a divine pill to consolidate his fifth blight. But in this starry sky, those who could concoct this kind of divine pill were definitely the most top-notch half-step heaven-breaking grade alchemists. In the monster domain, even ordinary half-step heaven-break grade alchemists were difficult to find, let alone top half-step heaven-break grade alchemists. And Zhuowen happened to be one of the top half-step heaven-break grade alchemists. As long as Eastern Emperor Taiyi had enough half-step heaven-break grade divine pills, he could refine a divine pill to consolidate his fifth blight. And this was the bargaining chip he needed to get Mu Chunxue to leave Beast Saint Palace. After the banquet ended, the representatives of many forces bid farewell to Eastern Emperor Taiyi, and even Heng Wu and Xian Yue left. However, the two of them still reminded Zhuowen before leaving. Donghuang Taiyi stood up, glanced at Zhuowen, and suddenly disappeared from the square. Donghuang Taiyi's sonorous voice rang out in Zhuowen's mind, "Meet me at the Demon Saint Palace. Husband. You must not go to the demonic Beast Temple. That place is the origin of the demon realm and has the densest demonic aura in the entire demon realm. Demon saints are the strongest in the Demon Saint Temple. If you go there, you'll be like a lamb in a tiger's den." Zhuowen stood up, and so did the Holy Maiden. Her beautiful eyes were filled with anxiety as she sent a voice transmission to Zhuowen. "It's all right. Believe in your husband. Even if the demon saint is at the peak of the fifth blight, I still have the ability to escape." Zhuowen transmitted a message back, then left the square and headed towards the Demon Saint Temple. He had a Heaven-Breaker divine tool on him, and he also had the terrifying power of the ultimate Yin Flame. Even if this demon saint really did attack him, he wouldn't be afraid. The Holy Maiden looked at Zhuowen's back as he left. She sighed and followed him. The Demon Saint Temple was located at the core of the Demon Saint Palace. It was a magnificent palace. Moreover, the surface of the Demon Saint Temple was filled with extremely dense demonic aura. The demonic aura was so dense that it was almost tangible. At this moment, the door of the Demon Saint Temple was open, and it was pitch black inside. "Husband, I'll go in with you. If the Demon Saint really does harm to you, I might be able to help you." The Holy Maiden walked beside Zhuowen, her brows furrowed. "All right, come in with me." Zhuowen didn't refuse. Thus, the two of them entered the Demon Saint Temple. When they reached the deepest part of the Demon Saint Temple, the originally pitch-black hall suddenly lit up with clusters of blue flames. These blue flames floated in the air, emitting a faint blue light, mysterious and distant. Only then did Zhuowen realize that at the front of the hall, there was a throne, and Donghuang Taiyi was sitting on it. At the same time, there were pitch-black chains around the hall. These chains were as thick as an arm and emitted a cold light. Zhuowen discovered that there was a figure standing on each chain. The aura of these figures was extremely terrifying. The weakest was at the peak of the heaven-passing realm, and the strongest was at the peak of the fourth heaven's blight. However, The aura of death on these figures was very dense. The moment Zhuowen scanned these figures with his divine will, he immediately recognized that these were the corpses of the great shamans he had seen in the 9-story tower. However, these great shamans had been refined into corpse puppets by Donghuang Taiyi and were completely under his control. "You're very bold to actually dare to come to the Demon Saint Temple. Tell me, what's your name?" Donghuang Taiyi sat on the throne and looked down at Zhuowen. "My name is Zhuowen. I came to the Demon Saint Temple just to discuss something with you. As long as you agree to this, I can help you completely consolidate the early stage of the 5th decay in a short time," Zhuowen said calmly. The moment Donghuang Taiyi heard Zhuowen's words, his pupils shrank, and he completely lost his calm. "You can help me consolidate the 5th decay?" Donghuang Taiyi's eyes flashed, and he sneered. "As far as I know, your cultivation is only at the 3rd decay, but your divine soul is extremely powerful, and you know how to attack the divine soul. With your cultivation, how can you help me consolidate the 5th decay with your cultivation? Unless you're a top half-step heaven break alchemist." Unfortunately, not to mention the demon realm, even the heaven pass secret realm can't find a few top half-step heaven break alchemist. Donghuang Taiyi shook his head. He felt that Zhuowen was talking nonsense. "I'm a half-step heaven break alchemist. There are 2 kinds of elixirs that can consolidate the early stage of the 5th decay. They are the 1000 Turns Jade Essence Pill and the Fecta Nirvana Jade Pill. If you can get the materials for these 2 kinds of elixirs, then I can immediately refine these 2 kinds of elixirs for you and help you consolidate the realm," Zhuowen said calmly. Donghuang Taiyi was startled at first, and then his eyes lit up. Of the 2 kinds of elixirs that Zhuowen mentioned, he had only heard of the 1000 Turns Jade Essence Pill. This kind of elixir was indeed a panacea for consolidating the early stage of the 5th decay. Before he broke through the early stage of the 5th decay, he had already searched for the ingredients for the 1000 Turns Jade Essence Pill so that he could use it to consolidate the realm after breaking through. However, he had collected almost all the ingredients, but he hadn't found an alchemist who could refine this kind of elixir. Originally, he had given up on using the elixir to consolidate the realm, and planned to use time to consolidate the realm slowly. He didn't expect that Zhuowen would come to him. Moreover, Zhuowen could easily mention the 1000 Turns Jade Essence Pill. Obviously, he was not a weak half-step heaven break alchemist. "Okay, I'll give you a chance. If you can successfully refine the 1000 Revolving Jade Essence Heavenly Pill, I'll pretend that nothing happened and you'll be able to keep your life," Donghuang Taiyi said solemnly. Chapter 3579. Donghuang Taiyi narrowed his eyes and his aura exploded. He coldly looked down at Zhuowen and said, "What did you just say? You said the Saintess is your wife?" Zhuowen stood there, not being affected by Donghuang Taiyi's aura at all as he softly replied, "That's right. She and I both came from the Heavenly Armor planet and are of the same origin, so we became husband and wife a long time ago." At this moment, Mu Chunxue also stood out and cupped her hands to Donghuang Taiyi. "Sir Monster Saint, I've told you before that I had a husband. You should know that I've been looking for my husband all these years. And now, my husband has found me." Donghuang Taiyi fell silent. He did know that Mu Chunxue had a husband before, but that was a matter of the Heavenly Armor planet. He thought that even if Mu Chunxue's husband's talent wasn't bad, his cultivation should be very low. In Donghuang Taiyi's eyes, the husband Mu Chunxue spoke of was nothing more than an insignificant ant. But now, Zhuowen had appeared. He knew that the ant he thought of before was actually this strong. "Chen Shui, congratulations on finding your husband. How about this, you and your husband can be together again, but you are my monster saint after all, so you can't leave as you please. Since your husband is here, he can stay in the Monster Saint Palace with you in the future. I won't mistreat the 2 of you," Donghuang Taiyi softly said. "Donghuang Taiyi, the Monster Saint Palace can't hold me. I feel like you should consider this carefully. I'll help you refine the 1000 Rotation Jade Marrow Heavenly Pill and help you consolidate your cultivation, then my wife and I will leave the Monster Saint Palace," Zhuowen softly said. Donghuang Taiyi revealed a smile, but his smile was very cold. He looked down at Zhuowen and said, "Do you think you still have a choice? Your divine soul is indeed strong, but your cultivation is only at the third blight. The monster Saint Palace is my home. In this place, my strength is the strongest. Even if a mid-fifth blight cultivator comes in, they won't be able to leave. If you want to live, you can only agree to my requests. Otherwise, only death awaits." Mu Chenshue's expression changed slightly. She did not expect Donghuang Taiyi to be so ruthless. He actually used forceful means to keep them here. However, when Mu Chensue saw the calm look on Zhuowen's face, her heart calmed down. She had absolute trust in Zhuowen. She knew that Zhuowen would not act on impulse. Since he dared to come to the demon temple, it meant that he had the confidence to leave this place. At this moment, the figures with terrifying auras on the countless chains above the hall began to move. They turned into black after-images, darting about in the air like ghosts in the night. "Haha, in the Beast Saint Palace, I don't even need to do anything. My corpse puppets can tear you apart." These corpse puppets were all made from the corpses of powerful senior magi back in the ancient era, and are extremely powerful. "You won't be a match for them," Donghuang Taiyi's indifferent voice rang out in the hall. His voice was filled with confidence. He looked at Zhuowen with contempt and disdain in his eyes. He did not intend to kill Zhuowen directly. Instead, he intended to let the corpse puppets seriously injure Zhuowen, and then force him to hand over his divine soul imprint and become his slave. Not to mention that this person's strength was so powerful, the fact that he could refine the top half-step heaven-breaking divine elixir proved how valuable he was. Once he had such a powerful alchemist at his disposal, the power of the Demon Saint Palace would rise to a higher level. At that time, even if the heaven-accessing place was much more powerful than the Demon Saint Palace, he was confident that he could catch up with them in a short time. But soon, Donghuang Taiyi was stunned. He saw Zhuowen in the middle of the hall with a calm expression. He only moved his index finger slightly, and the golden ring on his index finger surged with a white flame. Clatter! The moment the white flame gushed out of the golden ring, it spread out like an evil fire snake and rose to the sky, forming a sea of fire all over the sky. This white flame did not contain a blazing temperature, but was filled with an incomparably cold and ancient chill. All the corpse puppets that rushed to Zhuowen were turned into ice sculptures the moment they touched the white flame. Then, the ice sculptures turned into powder in the surging flame. These flames were too terrifying. Whether it was the peak ascending heaven corpse puppet or the terrifying fourth decay corpse puppet, none of them were able to escape being turned into countless ice shards the moment they touched the white flames. Their bodies and souls were destroyed. The ultimate yin fire. "No, how can you have this kind of flame? Stop it. Stop it right now." Donghuang Taiyi was about to go crazy when he saw the white flame engulfing the corpse puppets. The ultimate Hanyin flame, this was the most terrifying energy that would only descend when a cultivator was crossing the fifth blight. Donghuang Taiyi had just entered the fifth blight, so he was impressed by the ultimate yin fire. At that time, if it were not for his good fortune and some luck, he would have perished in this extreme Hanyin fire. Moreover, the extreme Hanyin fire of his fifth decay was only the size of a brazier. Even so, he was still being bombarded to the point of hovering between life and death. However, the extreme Hanyin flame released by Zhuowen was simply too terrifying. It covered an area of several kilometers and was completely filled with extreme Hanyin flame. And what made Donghuang Taiyi's heart ache was that his corpse puppets were being destroyed at a speed visible to the naked eye in the ultimate yin fire. These corpse puppets were refined by him after countless years of hard work. He even risked his life to steal the corpses of many great shamans to refine. It was because of these powerful corpse puppets that the Demon Saint Palace he established was able to stand at the peak of the demon realm. It was also because of these corpse puppets and the 9-storied pagoda that he was able to establish the demon realm under the pressure of the Xian Mi heavenly domain and the untainted desolation heavenly domain. But now, almost all of his corpse puppets were dying in the ultimate yin fire. This was a heavy loss for him. When the last peak fourth blight corpse puppet was destroyed by the ultimate yin fire, Zhuowen lazily put away the remaining ultimate yin fire with the golden ring. He looked at Donghuang Tai with a questioning gaze. Although Zhuo Wen looked very calm on the surface, his heart was pained. Just now, he had used a third of the ultimate yin fire. This kind of energy was too terrifying, but it was also consumed very quickly. If it wasn't for the golden ring, he wouldn't have been able to suppress this terrifying flame. Feeling Zhuowen's gaze, Donghuang Tai's scalp tingled. He finally knew that this Zhuowen knew he would harm him, but he still dared to come to the Demon Saint Palace. This guy wasn't stupid, but he had a powerful trump card and wasn't afraid of him at all. Donghuang Tai, what did you just say? In the Demon Saint Palace, I'm not your match at all? Are you saying that you want to fight me personally? Zhuowen looked at Donghuang Tai, his indifferent voice resounding in the empty palace. Mu Chunxue was still standing beside Zhuowen. She looked at the corpse puppets turning into ice shards and couldn't help but be stunned. She always knew that Zhuowen was very strong, but there should be a limit to this strength. In her view, Zhuowen came to the Demon Saint Palace with confidence, so he should have the confidence to escape. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.